It's 6 p.m., December 14th, 2021. The Board of Trustees of Colerain Township convene. Mr. Baker, attendance, please. Roll call, please.
Mr. Unger?
Here.
Mr. Rajagopal?
Here.
Mr. Wallace?
Here.
Now, the Board of Trustees will be convening for the executive sessions. Mr. Mills?
Yes, sir. I recommend that the board move to go into executive session in accordance with Ohio Revised Code, Section 121.22G1, to discuss the employment and compensation of public employees, including the potential promotion of employees. In accordance with the Ohio Revised Code, Section 121.22G3, to discuss pending or imminent litigation with the township attorney. In accordance with Ohio Revised Code, Section 121.22G2, to consider the sale of township property. Also, 121.22G8, to consider confidential information relating to specific business strategy, discuss negotiations with other political subdivisions respecting requests for economic development assistance, and 121.22G4, to discuss collective bargaining sessions with public employees concerning their compensation.
I motion that we go into executive sessions for the reasons detailed by Jeff Mills.
I second it. Any discussions? Mr. Baker, roll call, please.
Mr. Unger?
Aye.
Mr. Rajagopal?
Aye.
Mr. Wallace?
Aye.
The Board of Trustees will be going for the executive sessions. We'll be back. It's a 7 p.m. The Board of Trustees are back from the executive sessions. Mr. Baker, roll call, please.
Mr. Unger?
Here.
Mr. Rajagopal?
Here.
Mr. Wallace?
Here.
Mr. Mills, anything you'd like to report?
No, sir.
Okay. Let's all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please remain standing for the moment of meditation. As we gather here, let us pray for the victims and the families who suffered from this horrible tornado a few days ago. Let's keep praying for this, our safety for all the families, children who will be celebrating these holidays. Let us pray for our country. Thank you. Be seated, please. The next in the agenda is the fiscal office.
Mr. President, I rise to a moment of personal privilege, please.
Sure.
It has been an outstanding 2 years for me, and I guess 4 years for many of us. So I'm going to drop it, and we've decided to honor your service and thank you so much with your own gavel. And I love you like a brother, and I've learned so much from you. And I think that hopefully you can look back on these days as you're watching this on television and think, I'm glad I'm home. But thank you so much for your service, and we just put together as a token of our appreciation for all that you've done for Colerain Township.
Thank you, man.
And thank you for getting that together, Jeff Mills.
Thank you, Jeff. It's a great privilege and honor being was a trustee for this beautiful Colerain Township. Thank you. Thank you very much. The fiscal office report, please.
Yes, thank you, Board.
I have the minutes that are in front of you tonight for your approval from the Board of Trustees meeting on November 9th, 2021.
I motion that we would approve the minutes from the November 9th, 2021 meeting.
I'll second.
Any discussions?
None from me.
Nope.
Mr. Baker, roll call, please.
Mr. Unger,
Aye.
Mr. Rajagopal,
Aye.
Mr. Waller.
Aye.
The next on the agenda is the presentations.
Mr. Rajagopal, Board of Trustees, may I recommend a modification to the meeting? I recommend a motion to remove item C from presentations. There's a miscommunication, and that item is not ready for public hearing tonight. And it wasn't set at the last meeting, so.
Do you need a motion to do that?
Yes.
Go ahead.
I would motion that we remove item C, public hearing on case ZA 2021-07, text amendment related to mobile food service uses.
I'll second that.
Any discussions?
Did we need a motion to amend the agenda to do that also?
No.
Okay. No discussion.
Mr. Baker, roll call, please.
Mr. Unger,
Aye.
Mr. Rajagopal,
Aye.
Mr. Waller.
Aye.
Thank you. Mr. Rajagopal, and Board of Trustees, the first presentation will be made by Chief Walls, introducing and swearing in a newly promoted employee.
First of all, good evening to the board. Good evening to those of you in attendance and those watching virtually. If I may, I'll have Captain Dower stand up here with his wife and family if he'd like. We'll do a quick introduction and then we'll swear him in. Captain Dower started as a part-time firefighter paramedic in 2008. In 2010, he was promoted to full-time as a firefighter paramedic. In 2015, he was promoted to a lieutenant, and most recently to EMS captain. He has an associate's degree in fire service technology from Cincinnati State. He's enrolled in the Ohio Fire Executive Program, which he'll graduate from in 2022. And he's accompanied tonight by his wife, Shannon, and his children, Charlie, Joey, and Molly. And Shannon will do the pinning here momentarily. Raise your right hand and say it after me. I. State your name. Eric Dower. Do solemnly swear. That I will uphold the Constitution of the United States of America.
That I will uphold the Constitution of the United States of America.
The Constitution of the State of Ohio.
The Constitution of the State of Ohio.
And its bylaws.
And its bylaws.
I will abide by
I will abide by
the Colerain Township Department of Fire and Emergency Medical Services mission statement.
the Colerain Township Department of Emergency Medical Services mission statement.
Values.
Values.
Code of ethics.
Code of ethics.
Standard operating guidelines.
Standard operating guidelines.
And the township's policies and procedures.
And the township's policies and procedures.
And I will faithfully discharge the duties of captain
And I will faithfully discharge the duties of captain
in and for Colerain Township,
in and for Colerain Township,
Hamilton County,
Hamilton County,
State of Ohio,
the State of Ohio,
to the best of my ability,
to the best of my ability.
so help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations, sir.
Congratulations, sir. That all the children?
Thank you. The next presentation will be given by Chief Denny, and Chief Denny will be introducing and swearing in a newly hired police officer, Mr. Blake Wallace.
Good evening, Board. Blake, you want to join me up front here? Blake is a 2019 graduate of Mower High School and a graduate of the Great Oaks Police Academy. Prior to coming to Colerain, Blake worked as a part-time police officer for the Village of Marymount. Bringing him up already. Joining Blake tonight is his father, Rich Wallace, who is a police and fire chief for Amberley Village. He's not busy enough as one, so he does both. You want to introduce who else you brought with you?
My brother's fiance, my mother, my former chief Hines,
Ready to go?
Hold on a second, Mark. There you go.
I state your name. I, Blake Wallace. Do solemnly swear. Do solemnly swear. I will uphold the Constitution of the United States of America. That I will uphold the Constitution of the United States of America. The Constitution of the State of Ohio and its bylaws. I will abide by the Colerain Police Department mission and value statement. Code of ethics. Code of ethics. Rules and regulations. Rules and regulations. Police Department policy and procedure. Police Department policy and procedure. I will faithfully discharge the duties of police officer. I will faithfully discharge the duties of police officer. In and for Colerain Township. In and for Colerain Township. County. County. State of Ohio. State of Ohio. To the best of my ability. To the best of my ability. So help me God. So help me God.
Congratulations, welcome aboard, thank you.
Congratulations, sir.
Congratulations, you're welcome.
Chief, we'll let the Mueller stuff slide for now, so.
Absolutely. We actually did his official swearing in on his birthday. He was 21. He was born in 2000. Again, if that doesn't make you feel old, I don't know what that is.
It really does, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, welcome aboard, and to your father, thank you for your service as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, the next on the agenda is citizens address. Got a whole bunch of lists.
Put that box on the floor so it's not on camera.
Okay, let's move on to the citizens address. As you see the agenda, we got a long agenda. We have, I would like to request the citizens address for at least for 5 minutes. Okay, thank you. I have the list, Kathy Moore, please.
Good evening.
Good evening. Is this on? Yeah. I have a couple of questions about the agenda. First of all, on the special assessment policy for road repairs, it said for sidewalks and road repairs. So is the board going to change its policy on road repairs, and now the residents of that street will have to pay for any improvement? And if this is a policy, it should be adopted by the board, as it says no action is required. And it says costs would be based on a percentage of total project costs spread by property frontage. Costs would be based on a particular assumed millage for the household, and costs could be evenly distributed per home on the street. And that says it's in regard to sidewalks and road repairs. There was an organizational chart was in the agenda. I'd like to know, and all the job descriptions were attached, and I'd like to know if there were any changes to those job descriptions, and if they were, what were they? And there's no date on those job descriptions. I want to thank Jeff Mills, you. I heard that you read a contract price at the last meeting. I haven't seen it, but people told me, and you read it out loud, and I appreciate that, and I hope it goes that way from now on. Thank you. For the advancement of township funds to the community development grant, homeowners will not be responsible for the sidewalk replacement if, that's what I'm asking, am I reading that correctly? And if you are paying for it out of community development funds, will that fund be reimbursed by the residents? For the merit pool, $91,218.24, which reflects a 3% increase across the board. However, that's not how it has worked in the past. Last year's employees were given anywhere from a 0% to 10+%. And I don't know how you can approve an amount without knowing the actual increase for your employees. If this business meeting is 3 pages long on the agenda, I think that you should have 2 meetings a month instead of just 1. And do we have an economic development employee yet?
Jeff will answer that when he,
Do we have an economic development person? Can you just say yes or no? And then I would like to thank Raj for your 4 years of dedicated service to the township.
Thank you.
We appreciate you and wish you luck.
Thank you very much, Kathy. Next is Bruce, please.
Well, first, I want to wish y'all a Merry Christmas and a happy and safe and prosperous New Year. My comments tonight are primarily dealing with this agreement with the Guide Studio for branding services. The township seems to have a history of surveys and whatever, and at least this one's only $39,000, not $90,000 to $100,000. But I want to remind folks, I was looking through this package, they're promoting their services like they've done with Westchester, and I know there's some people here that want to be Westchester. We aren't Westchester, we're never going to be Westchester, and the demographics for Colerain will never make it so. Also, that I realize these things are trends. Like everybody else is doing it, therefore we must do it. But it reminds me of something my mother used to say in the early 50s. If everybody's going off and jumping off the roof, do you need to jump off your roof too, or off a bridge? So pretty much that's it. Wish you all well.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bruce. The next is Howard Williams. Is it Williamson, please? Come on.
Hi, I've never been to one of these meetings or anything like this before, so I apologize that,
mic down a little bit. There you go.
Thank you. Good evening. Thanks for coming out.
so the reason why I'm here is more of a personal reason. I had just to kind of give you a very brief scenario, I have a neighbor who doesn't like me much. I've lived in Colerain Township for 35 years. I'm one of the original owners on my street, besides one other owner. I've seen many people come and go, and I have an issue with this neighbor. She has an issue with me. I don't have really an issue with her, except for she just needs to mind her own business. So she doesn't even speak to me, but anyway, so because I have had a series of misfortunate in the last 20 years, I've been divorced, left to raise 5 children on my own, went from a $60,000 income to a $20,000 income, to being unemployed, to trying to save my home, to keep my kids. Sometimes I didn't have money to pay for tags on my car, internet service, trash service. I used to take my trash and dump it in gas station so that I didn't have a trash bill. I've had times where I was working 12-hour shifts, 7 days a week. COVID hit, I ran head short of money, and I was working to pay off a bankruptcy that I had finally started to save my home because of me being unemployed and only making $600 a month. My house went into unemployment, or my house went into foreclosure. So just trying to save and do whatever I can. I had vehicles that I wasn't driving because I couldn't pay for insurance on them. They were in my driveway, they were operable, there was nothing wrong with them. I got tagged for those cars. I called what I thought I had taken care of the situation. I pulled the policy off of the website that I have here, and I can show, if you guys want to see this. It doesn't say anything on this nuisance policy that my cars had to be tagged or they had to move around on my driveway. So I spoke with Chris in July. I actually had a cancer diagnosis a couple years ago, but I waited till my bankruptcy was finalized in July to take care of my surgery and to start my chemo and radiation, because I didn't want to be, I was like, if I don't have a home to live in, I gotta pay this off, this mortgage off, this payment's off. So what I'm actually, I guess in November, I was not made aware that I spoke with Chris after he came back from vacation. He was on vacation. I told him the situation, that I was had just gone through surgery. I was gonna be out for like 6 to 8 weeks. I had a buyer for one of my cars, but I unfortunately lost the keys and couldn't find them, and that I was kind of tied up with the process of my medical issues. Had I received this in the mail in November, or as some type of documentation that was sent to me, however, by certified mail, I would have realized it wasn't taken care of, and I would have came to address it at that time. Now, I lost those 2 cars. I have no cars on my driveway now. You took my 2 cars. You took all the belongings that were in my car that were stored, what I was using to store. And I can tell you that I was using my car to store items because I help people. I take food to elderly. I collect items, people who don't need them, and I take them to people. I take them to homeless shelters. I take food. I have girls who have been single moms who are in fires and situations like that. And I take clothes and I send these things to them. My current car that I'm using right now, you could go out and see. It's stacked to the window because I collect things and I get things. So maybe my neighbor didn't like because I had things in there. My current laundry was in there because I couldn't carry it all the way in the house by myself. So all my belongings and everything that I have, Christmas presents, decorations, appliances, pots and pans, clothing, towels. I had buckets of gloves, socks, things that me and my daughter started back when she was in the 1st grade that we would collect over the year and donate to random people or homeless shelters or things like that. So what I'm asking is, before you come and take someone who thought I had taken care of the situation, when I spoke with Chris, no one told me, and this does not say in this, that I have to have current tags on my car, on my property, on my driveway. I understand if it's on the street.
Ma'am, thank you very much for saying all that. Would you, because the time, we'll address your issue whenever the administration comes. We'll take care of these issues. Address that. Good. Just go and wrap it up. We got other people to need to talk.
Basically, I'm just kind of asking, and I also wanted you to see the pictures. The cars that were on my driveway are in better shape than a lot of the cars that you can see driving on the road. You took pictures of them. I did not receive any of these documentations. But what I'm asking for is now you have possession of all my stuff and my belongings. I've been told I only have limited, I might be able to get onto the lot and get some of it. I'm not in physical condition to go all the way back and come back and make multiple trips. I'm asking for someone to help me with that. I'm also asking with whatever money you make from my vehicles, because somewhere the township's going to make money by taking it to wherever to get crushed or whatever, that you at least take that money and donate it to a family who needs it, instead of the township receiving funds for that.
Thank you. Thank you, ma'am. The next on the list is Lori Mcmullen, please.
Good evening.
Hi,
Good.
is there
Hello.
anything we can do to help her? Can we give her her cars back? If anything, if we have her contact information, we will help.
We have addressed Lori.
Okay. We will help with helping her get her belongings
Right,
back.
yeah, I spoke to her on the phone, and she just needs to call 321 Cops and make an appointment to pick up her stuff.
Okay.
So Raj will follow up with you after the meeting.
But I don't think she said that she's physically able.
If you're willing to
So-
help, she's
Oh.
right there, you can connect with her.
Yep. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought I saw her walk out. Oh, okay. So first of all, Merry Christmas and Happy New Year in advance and Happy Holidays and all of that. I'm actually not here on official business, but more gift giving. And I know that they gave you a gift already, but I'm going the fun route.
Thank you, Lori. Thank you so much. You're welcome. Thank you. You can open it now.
It's not that fun, Dan.
Pickleball. Thank you.
So you had made a promise when you first sat up there talking about pickleball, trying to teach all of us what it is, and you made a promise to 60,000 residents, but definitely me on Facebook, that you would teach us how to play this sport.
Definitely.
So
Definitely.
I cannot have an instructor that doesn't look the part. So you have a pickleball hat, pickleball socks. You can show everyone. They're cute.
Oh, boy.
Thank you.
And
Thank you so
I can't
much.
have you getting dehydrated. You are older than me. So pickleball cup.
Amazing. Thank you
So
so
I just
much.
wanted to say thank you for being a trustee that was just out in the trenches with us. Every event, every opportunity that you could, answering the phone, answering emails, and just being a stand-up guy. So from me to you, thank you. You will be missed.
Thank you. Thank you, Lori. I loved it. I love being a trustee. I love each minute of it. Thank you. The next is Stephanie Wright, please.
Evening.
Hello. I have a few things that are on the agenda to address and a couple of questions that are not on there. One is there were a couple of properties that recently were purchased by, I believe, the CIC or transferred from the township to the CIC that were going to be sold. And those properties were going to be listed for sale somewhere on the township's website or perhaps putting a sign in the front yard. The last time this was addressed, our administrator said that nothing was happening because it hadn't been transferred on the auditor's site. And that was maybe 3 months ago. I checked today and it's still not been transferred. That just seems like it's a really long time for something not to be transferred. I was just wondering if that was still in the works. There is something on the agenda tonight for trash abatement. As everyone knows, trash is my gig. And my only concern with this is that we've already hired one company that was a failure. And it's kind of falling along the same lines to me as with the false alarms. At one time, business false alarms were a huge burden upon our police department. So they sought out and contracted with a company to handle the false alarms because it was too much to handle in-house. And that turned out to not work because the computer systems weren't jiving with each other. So where'd that go? Just fell by the wayside. I find it hard to believe that false alarms still aren't happening, and I'm sure they are. So my concern is with the trash abatement, that this is a process that is followed through, not just an agenda item, and to get people off your back for talking about trash. I really hope that this is something that is followed through. We also are, tonight on the agenda, we have appointing 2 positions, or 3 positions, to the Board of Zoning Appeals and the Zoning Commission. I was wondering when that was posted on the township's website for availability. And if the board has seen those applicants' applications. Are you approving this, or is the administration approving this positions? Today I watched on Facebook Live a presentation by We Thrive, which is something that I participated in since day one in Colerain Township. I also applied to be on that board, but the administration thought it was in poor taste since I sued the township that I shouldn't serve on a board. Just saying that's a really shame to make our community suffer because I might not agree with how the township does things. I'm still a member of this community. I like to think that I have a lot of good ideas and that my talents are being wasted over some conflict of interest, perhaps with the administration. Also on the agenda this evening is a contract with Rumpke. Who has the township been using for trash service? I know as a resident in Colerain Township, we don't have the choice. You have to use Rumpke, but as a business, you can choose your trash provider or collector. I was just wondering who the township has been using all along and why the switch. And then one last thing is I'd like to say to Raj, thank you for 4 years of honesty, respect, and support for Colerain Township. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. President, I don't know how many more citizens' addresses we have, but I have literally 2 pages of notes. I wonder if it'd be helpful to stop and respond to the questions that we've had up to this point, and then continue with the other ones. Is that?
I have 3 more citizens' address.
I'm just throwing that out there. If
Yeah,
it's,
sure. And we are giving like 5 minutes. They are taking 5 minutes. Some people want less. Let's finish this. So
Okay.
Okay? We are pretty much complying with the 5 minutes things. Okay. The next on the list is Christine. Christine Henson, Miss Christine. Oh, I'm sorry, Christine Henson.
Christine, we both jumped up. Pick one.
Um,
You want Hanson or Freiberg?
Henson, please. Yeah.
Good evening.
You're shocked I'm even speaking. Okay, I'm here on behalf of the Colerain Historical Society. And we'd like to just thank Raj for his service to Colerain Township. During his 4 years as a trustee, he's continually promoted projects and programs to make Colerain Township a better place to live, work, and play. He's supported our neighborhoods, our businesses, and our organizations, and is a regular volunteer at most community events. We wish him well in his endeavors, and on a personal note, the Historical Society is looking forward to working with him in January as the newest member of our board of directors.
Thank you.
Good luck, Raj.
Thank you, Christine. It's a great honor to do that. Thank you. Next to Christine. Wait a minute.
Freiberg, there you go.
Yeah, you got it.
There you go.
Evening.
Good evening. I just wanted to say thank you, Raj,
Thank you.
for 4 years. I just remember that 4 years ago, on election night, I was listening to 700, and Mike Allen was the host that night. And one of the things he said about you was that Colerain Township could not have a better trustee serving them, and I could not agree with him more. So thank you for your service, and I wish you the best of luck in everything.
Thank you very much. Thank you. That was great, guys. Thank you for kind words. And finally, Mr. Rich McGuay.
Let me add my thanks for your service.
Thank you.
I call you my friend, you know that, and I think you've set a high bar for your trustees relative to the compassion that you've shown for the residents and caring. You're a good man, and
Thank
people
you.
here tonight to recognize that, and I wish you the best. We took the mobile food service thing off the docket, and I'm glad you've done that. I think it's a terrible idea. There's no revenue. You have additional public safety costs with these vehicles. There's litter. You have competition with current businesses. If you're really serious about this thing, charge them accordingly. You know, ask them to come up with $2 or $3 grand a year to put their vehicles out there. I mean, someone with a business pays taxes. These guys don't pay any taxes. You might get some revenue, but you don't know because they don't always do a good job with filing their returns. A little bit about the trash agreement that was mentioned earlier. I'm not sure who negotiated that, but I pay $10 a month per container to have Rumpke pick them up at my place, and this looks like it's, you know, $140 a container or something like that a month. I don't who negotiated that. And if we are putting these things by bus stops, I don't know where they're going. It didn't say that. I think you guys need to bill SORTA. It's their problem. You know, and they got a lot of my sales tax dollars going down there, and there's nothing that says that my sales tax dollar can't be used to pick up their trash. Around the 2022 temporary appropriations, I mean, this is kind of a routine things, but I don't know if you guys looked at it. I do. Your police expenditures are up about 15% over last year's appropriation. Your fire and EMS expenditures are increasing about 30%. That's even with pulling their insurance costs down to their self-insurance line, which is a new line. So I don't know what's going on. I hope you guys do. That's a lot of money. I think asking residents to fund their own roads is a terrible idea. Terrible idea. You have one standard for business and you have another for residents. You bought Rumpke's Road. You bought Kroger's parking lot. Now you want residents to buy their own roads.
Doesn't make any sense. You get millage, you're spending too much money in other areas. Take some of the money you're spending in other areas and put it into roads so that we can benefit from them. Now, the last meeting, I came up with a list of questions to you guys, and I handed them out, and I'm going to bring them back here again tonight. Now, I didn't expect to get answers to all those questions, guys. You know, I grew up in a business where asking questions was the norm. Everybody asked questions. And when you were asked the questions, you were expected to get an answer. That's just the way you did it. You didn't take it personally. Now, all the questions I asked you last meeting in November were based on documents that you guys have been using, strategic plans or other comments. I just asked you, what are you doing relative to commitments you've made? Simple question. And the best thing to say if you don't know is I don't know. So I watched the Waycross video, and there was a bunch of mumbling going on in that where people were trying to answer without the answers. And I don't expect you to have answers for everything right on the spot. But I do expect you to answer things specifically because they're straightforward questions, and I'll bring them here again. Importantly, I want to reemphasize what decisions you're going to make relative to the traffic study on Laura Linda. That's been going on for 6 years. What are you going to do with donation boxes? You know, that's not a First Amendment issue. I mean, Matt, you said we have attorneys that, you know, don't have time to work on it. You know, maybe it's outrageous, but instead of sitting here at these meetings, maybe they can work on that kind of stuff. The last thing I want to talk about is I mentioned that Rumpy continues to be a nuisance around odor, and they're in violation of the consent decree. Now, Dan mentioned it. He said he didn't know, but they are. I will give you the consent decree, and you smell it. We all smell it. And it's against the law to do that. And it's against your consent decree. And it's not the EPA problems, it's your problem. You guys run this place. You're supposed to. Not going away. These are statements that you've made, and we want you guys to give the answers. Thank you.
Thank you, Rich. That concludes the citizens' address. Now we move on to the administrative reports.
Great, thank you, Mr. Rajagopal. I'll start by answering as many of these questions as I can here. Ms. Moore had a question about the special assessment policy for roads, and I think Mr. McVeigh also did. It's really important to, it's really important to remember that this is not the way that we intend to fund roads, right? So this is a way, right now we're on about a 60-year replacement schedule for our roads. And sometimes, for those of us that come to these meetings often, we see from time to time residents bringing in pieces of their road and saying, when is the township going to fix my road? And oftentimes they're not on the list for years. And so the idea is if you and your neighbors would like to opt into a program whereby you and your neighbors pay for half of the cost of the road, that will bump your road to the top of the list. So then you would be able to get your road fixed. The township would be able to pave more roads than we would otherwise. And it's a model that's being used in a number of other communities. So that's the idea. It's not making residents pay for their roads. We will get to your road as soon as we possibly can. But if you would like to, have skin in the game as well, then that can move it to the top of the list.
And this calls for no action because it's a first read, right?
That's right. That was my next thing. It does take action of the board, but when we present policies, it's been typically our practice to present them in 2 installments so that we can have robust conversation about it and clear up any misconceptions as we heard tonight. So it'll come back next month in old business because it will have already been in new business, and it'll be taken up by the board at that time. Were there changes to the job descriptions? I believe there were changes to the job descriptions. Is that right, Mr. Weckbach? Yep. Okay. Are homeowners paying for the sidewalks? Yes. So the way that the way that our sidewalk maintenance program works is we get community development block grant dollars from through the county. It's federal money. We say, hey, it's the residents' responsibility to fix these sidewalks. We mark the sidewalks that are bad. If the resident would like to contract with a concrete vendor, they can do that by a certain date. If they have not done that by a certain date, then we will fix the sidewalks, and then we'll be able to assess that cost to your property taxes over the course of 5 years at 0% interest. So as that'll be a special assessment. As those are paid back, it goes back into a revolving fund. So what we're doing is we're seeding, using this as seed money to create a revolving loan fund to hopefully do lots of sidewalk maintenance in the years to come. So that's how that works. Do we have an economic development director? We do not yet, but I anticipate in the next few weeks we may. So let's see. Ms. Wright asked about properties not being transferred. Yeah, that's frustrating. The paperwork has been filed. It's just a matter of the auditor making that change, and so I'll have to follow up with them. Trash abatement. I think there might have been a little bit of misunderstanding here. What's on the agenda tonight is to put out an RFP for a vendor very similar to the guy that cuts grass on nuisance properties. So when there's a nuisance in one of our neighborhoods, the Board of Trustees declares it a nuisance on our nuisance resolution, and then if it's tall weeds or grass, we do an RFP every couple of years and identify a grass vendor that cuts grass for us. All the grass cutting goes to that one person. That way we don't have to do procurement every 2 weeks for a grass cutting vendor. This is the same thing, only for trash. So if you have lots of trash and debris on your property, then this RFP would identify a single vendor that, every 2 weeks we would just be able to hand the list of trash abatements to that vendor, and then they'd be able to pick that up, and we don't have to go through a procurement process each time we want to do that. So it's not going up and down Colerain Avenue or any of those. It's abating trash on private property that has been declared a nuisance. When there was a question about when the boards and commissions was posted, it's been posted for a very long time. I think that there was a Circle article that went out about it, saying, hey, if you're interested, apply. So that's been open for quite a while. Let's see. Who has the township been using to pick up trash? Rumpke has. This is an addendum to our existing contract. So this adds to the service that we're currently getting from Rumpke. It adds 10 street cans that will be placed on Colerain Avenue, and it adds weekly pickup of those 10 street cans. So the answer to your question is Rumpke.
Does that include the cans also, or who's paying for the cans?
Yeah, the cost of the cans and the service is all rolled up into.
Okay, that's consistent with.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
That total's a little misleading because I think that's the new value of the monthly contract. It's not just for the 10 cans, right?
Right. Yeah.
It's because I did the same when I saw. I'm like, wait a second, $217 a can? No, it included the trash pickup that we already had, plus the 10 cans, plus the picking them up weekly.
It's so there's a line itemed addendum to the contract that
Right.
says all the different costs, and it was somewhere around, it's in there, you can look at it for yourself, but I think that it was like $250 per month for weekly service of the 10 cans and the cost of the cans amortized over the contract period. So
it's kind of a little inartistic. So I meant the new contract is just adding an additional approximately $250 a month for the 10 cans.
Right. That's right. That's the additional service that's being added this time around.
We
Yeah.
also, I mentioned it earlier, trying to reach out to the Darrell Haley, CEO of Metro. Maybe we already had the grant for the bus pullout.
Yep.
Maybe part of maybe additional money they will plan to give us this next year, we can add, they can pay for that, the garbage collections
That would be,
on the bus road.
that'd be fantastic.
I'm talking to him.
That's great. It's an annual cost of $1,500 to pick
Yeah.
up 10 cans, 52
It's only a
weeks.
fragment for them.
Right. Yep. Let's see. I wasn't able to keep up with Mr. McVeigh's question, so I didn't have, if you guys have any of those written down, please let me know. But those are all the questions.
Rumpke's in violation of the consent decree was one of his comments.
Rumpke's in violation of the consent decree?
That was one of his questions or comments.
Yeah, as I sit here today, I can't answer that. That's a large question I'd have to consult with our law director on, and I don't understand that.
Right.
And the point about, and I've talked about this, the donation bins being a First Amendment issue. I mean, I don't ever recall saying the lawyers didn't have time. It just can't, we can't get around the First Amendment issue, I think is the point
Well,
Mr. Solomon and Mr. Dieters has made, but we've been working on other things with it.
I believe that's going to be addressed at,
Zoning Commission this month.
on the
Yes.
21st, there's going to be I think, a hearing that addresses that, if I'm not mistaken.
Based upon the police powers of a township and the health and
We're
welfare.
attacking it by a different way.
Yeah.
So the zoning commission, it's anticipated that the zoning commission will initiate a text amendment this month to regulate donation bins.
Okay?
Okay, and so those are all the questions that I have written down. I hope that I got them all. I'd like to take a little bit of time to just sort of reflect on 2021. It's been an incredible year by any estimation. The things that we've accomplished this year, I'm very proud of. And I'd like to just sort of remind folks all the great things that have happened. We adopted a new comprehensive plan for the Colerain Township this year. That was a very big deal. It's a document that'll guide development into the future. The last update was 2006. So for almost 15 years, that comprehensive plan has guided development in our township. We completed Fort Colerain Playground. The former Megaland, that was a huge accomplishment with lots of different partners. We have our first pickleball courts. We have our first cricket pitch in Colerain Township. We received a sidewalk grant for Pippin Road, and that work is being done right now, the design work. This is behind the scenes, but during the 4th of July spectacular, we stood up our emergency operations center for the first time, a local emergency operations center in the basement. That's a big deal. We had all the capabilities of Command 400 in our basement, and we were executing 2 new emergency planning documents. The emergency operations plan and the continuity of operations plan were all adopted this year. We are prepared for emergencies. At the end of this year, Colerain Township will have 0 general obligation debt. We are going to be, for all intents and purposes, debt-free. There is some revenue debt, there are some leases, but very few organizations, governmental organizations, can say that they have 0 general obligation debt. That's an incredible thing. And one of the reasons why we have the second highest credit rating that you can get from Moody's. We were reevaluated. Our credit rating was reevaluated this year, and we received an AA1 credit rating. And a lot of that has to do with our revenue to debt ratio. Our general fund balance is stable and increasing slightly over the next 5 years. Our police fund, which was intended to last for 5 years and voted in 2014, will likely make it to 2024. That's a 10-year run on a 5-year levy. That's incredible. Our fire department funds are trending as they should, given the bow tie effect and the levy that was just passed last year. And our road funds are set to grow over the next 5 years, even as we increase our road resurfacing. These are all really incredible things. That farm to family program that fed residents in Colerain Township and all over the country as folks struggled through the pandemic was fantastic. And you'll see, if you drive down Niagara Street right now, you'll see the beginning of a planting of over 80 trees that's already transforming that neighborhood, and I just can't wait to see those leaf out in the spring. and on and on and on and on. I'm not going to bore you, but it's been a big year. And we've been able to do this through partnership. We've been able to do this because of your leadership and because of the partnerships we have with residents, businesses, and other stakeholders in the community. So onward to 2022, I think that our strategic plan sets the stage for next year, and we're looking forward to seeing what we can accomplish in 22. With that,
Jeff, one of the other questions that was asked was the status of the false alarm contract.
the status of the false alarm
Or
contract.
whatever, we had a false alarm contract and
We are not using PMAM.
to do the false alarm work.
Correct.
So that's what it is there's nobody chasing them right now?
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
That was a question that was asked during the
That's right.
citizen time.
Mr. Mills, I had a couple
Yep.
follow-up questions. The first one I think you know is coming. So the I-275.
Yes.
I got there and I saw what was planted and I wept openly. And just so people know, that's not even close to a start of what we're doing, right?
That's just the beginning. It's what we could accomplish before the ground got hard for a couple of days, and then it thawed back out, and that's the beginning, not the end.
On the trash abatement, and I'm just kind of spitballing here. I don't know if this can be done, but if we come up with a price on abatement for trash, can that almost be made available to other businesses? Is like a service. They could call us and say, "Hey, I got some trash here." Is there a way to?
I can talk to our law director about that.
Okay. And the other thing that it kind of occurred to me, and I don't know if, I think that North College Hill would maybe appreciate the revenue from this. They did a truck rental where you could rent their dump truck or whatever for like a weekend for $100, fill it full of trash, take it to Rumpke. That may at least offer some lawful options. I'm not saying go out and buy a truck. I'm saying maybe North College Hill would be interested in. I know that we shared some road street sweeper devices with them. Maybe that's something, and that's a community that would very much need kind of that kind of income. So I don't know if there's something that can be done with that as an option. And I was going to ask Mr. Solomon, because I've heard various reports on this. If somebody catches somebody littering on camera, what is the case law on this? If it's obviously a private concern and like, I don't know, Big Lots, get somebody dumping stuff in the back, like a mattress or something. I've been told multiple times that really there's nothing we could do because the police haven't witnessed it on camera. They need to be watching the tape when it happens. But then I've talked to other people that have pursued this. Do we have an idea I guess I'm confused.
Well, I would say that, every case is a little bit different, every camera. I've seen cameras just in doing litigation with respect to municipalities where they're good cameras and there's bad cameras. I don't know if they
Can we
can
get-
identify. First of all, I'd have to figure out, there's a private claim and then obviously there's a police claim. I don't know what ordinance, there's a number of different factors. I would have to look at this.
Okay.
It's hard to,
Right.
hypothetically speaking, I don't know.
Lawyers answer it depends because it depends. It's right. Is there a way I can get give you a model or where's the start to see? I feel like the answers I've gotten on this are just everywhere. Is there a particular type of camera or situation where it can be used?
Maybe that's something we can look up and get back to you.
Okay, that's what I'm. You tell me where to start, and I'll even look at. I don't even know where, because like I said, I've seen other cities get in trouble with it, and other townships get in trouble, and I've seen others do it. And I don't know what the secret sauce is that you can actually use camera. And I don't know that Big Lots wants to take time out of their day to go file this report and appear and things like that either. So, and I'm just using them as an example. I don't have no.
There's rules of evidence with respect to pursuing criminal, obviously.
Right.
Yeah, so.
The other thing I wanted to bring up is that I was going to ask, and I don't know if I motion this or not. I'd like to purchase 5 more speed signs for the Northbrook area to add and continue to collect the data and continue to add to work on some of the places that the speed increased as a result of some of the modifications we made. I had an opportunity to talk to Chief Denny about this, and he talked about, and we looked at the stats and the speed signs. leave a much lower footprint on the roads, and they seem to be relatively successful. Is that something I need to motion, or?
Can we do that at the next meeting?
Well,
Just put it on the agenda. Those are great. The study we did on Blue Rock Road, I think the top speed over there was 71 miles an hour on Blue Rock between Cheviot and the Green Township line over there by March Terrace, and I think they're great, but I just would rather have.
I mean, that's fine if you want to wait till the first week of January.
Yeah, just,
I just don't want to get in a situation where.
right.
Where we're kind of like putting it off and putting it off, so,
That would,
okay.
whatever,
And I think that's, yeah, I think that's all I had for you. I have a couple questions on a couple of things on the agenda, but I'll wait till those items come up. And I appreciate the help, and thank you for your hard work this year, and look forward to next. It's hard to believe it's the end of the year.
That's right. Very good. Thank you, Board. I'd like to invite Chief Walls up to give his administrative report from the fire department.
Good evening once again.
Chief.
For November 2021, we had 767 EMS incidents, 140 fire incidents. We had 29 responses into the EMS contract area in Springfield Township. We had a building fire in the 10,000 block of Colerain Avenue with a $5,000 loss, and a building fire in the 2800 block of Lookover Drive with a $13,000 loss. Total property value lost in November was $38,000. Property value saved was $7 million. Our incident response time, average for arrival of the first unit was 5 minutes and 27 seconds, and our first unit on scene, less than 6 minutes, was 63.19%. As a note, I thought that I heard an increase in expenditures for the fire department. Next year it's 1%, just as a note. And then from the fire department to the board and everyone here in the township for 2022, we wish nothing but peace, prosperity, and perhaps some unity. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, Chief. Next, I'd like to invite Chief Denny to the microphone to present the Police Department's administrative report.
Chief.
Good evening again. In November, the officers responded to 3,505 calls for service, and that's put us at about just over 40,000 calls for service to date. Response times to emergencies was an average of 2.7 minutes. The officers made 86 traffic stops and 9 OVI arrests. We had 1 use of force and no pursuits. So they made 110 physical arrests. And through November, we are down 11% on violent crime, and we're down 15% on property crime. So we'll see how December goes, but so far we have a good trend. In a second, I'm going to ask Lieutenant Cordy to come up and give you the year end of the code enforcement and property maintenance stuff that we've been doing. He's been in charge of that unit, so I'm going to let him talk about that. But Raj, I just want to thank you for all the support you've given us your entire term. It's been an honor to serve under you, and I hope we consider you a friend and that you're not a stranger.
Thank you, Chief. I'm really proud of our police department, our fire department. You guys doing amazing work for our township. And I saw that in the last incident happened, the shooting. And you guys did an amazing, sacrificial life, every officers. Also, because of the fire, our EMS, you saved the victims. They could have been dead.
The fire department did an amazing job with that.
Yeah, you saved their lives. And our police did an excellent job in investigating the scene in the crime area. It's a great job. I'm proud of you guys. Thank you.
That's the level of support I'm talking about. You've always been there for us, so thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
We're going to miss you.
Thank you.
Step up.
Chief, I just want to thank you too for the quick, I usually follow up a couple days after something like that and say, all right, do we have any suspects? And before I knew it, you had somebody in custody, and a big thanks to City of Cincinnati SWAT who assisted and made that a, this time of year I always think of, when you're my age, you think of Officers Jeter and, Pope. I'm waking up on a Sunday morning and reading that, and thank God that we had to show force to get that guy in custody and take it from there. So thank you for the quick.
They did a wonderful job.
Thank you, sir.
Hey, thanks.
Okay, thanks, Ed.
Evening.
I know every time I come in front of you, I always talk about Henry Boyd. I thought I'd bring him with me tonight so the board could officially meet him and we can talk about his efforts.
We met him.
So I know there's a couple folks in the audience that were wondering as well, but this is Henry Boyd, and he is our environmental crimes investigator. So as we all know, environmental crimes and code enforcement came underneath the police department roughly 6 months ago. And while knowing that a major focus of this board was to focus on blight, litter, and overall green initiatives, we wanted to give you a 6-month update on the efforts of Officer Boyd and Chris Cavallero and John Schuessler and Sergeant Jamie Penley. So try to hit the highlights on the handout I gave you. I know that's fairly small writing, but as you can see, there's a lot of stuff that they're doing. Frankly, some of these items I never thought that Henry would be able to find or be able to enforce, but here we are. For the year, from May through November, we have 24 littering and illegal dumping investigations. He stickered 250 abandoned vehicles. Of those 250, 115 of them were actually towed. 29 of those abandoned vehicle calls were investigated without any sort of citable issue. 13 had illegal disposal of construction debris. 2 illegal transportation of scrap tires. That's one of them I didn't think he'd be able to do, but he found 2. He's helped with the fire department on 13 open burns. 1 unsecured load. Here's another one. 1 polluting state land and water. All right, Henry. 2 theft of trash service. 58 residential zoning issues. 175 parking complaints. Personal favorite, somehow this is coming back, but 53 solicitors. These are at the end of your off-ramps, 275 Ronald Reagan, even on the different properties that are throughout the township as well. So 53 of those. Through his communication with the public, he had 114 replies via phone call, 77 from email, 106 personal contact, 29 of these investigations resulted in a citation. 227 of them were warnings. That's just Officer Boyd's work there by himself. Code enforcement on the zoning side of the world, and thank you, Henry.
Lieutenant, I want to make a small comment about Officer Boyd. Whenever call me, he's always there. He takes care of it within 10 minutes.
He doesn't stop as soon as
You know,
he usually
anytime
does that day.
he calls me, and he's a friend of our neighbors, the neighborhood. Thank you for your service, sir.
And he answers texts at weird times or messages, sometimes at like 3:30 in the morning, and I'm like, oh my gosh. So, thank you.
The efforts of the code enforcement unit of being Chris Cavallero and John Schuessler, they had, this is a year, so the 11 months of the year so far, 1,550 new entries were added into our system. A total inspections of 2,076, found violations of 1,541. 1,216 of those violations were closed. 11 of those violations were referred to housing court, and 67 of those violations were abated for grass. So I believe this new functionality of the code enforcement and the police department endeavor together, I believe we can say is working, and hopefully we're going to have the same or similar effects for 2022. And Ms. Howard will be working with you. Thank you, board.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lieutenant Cordy.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Next, I'd like to invite Mr. Weckbach to give the Public Services Administrative Report.
Good evening, everyone. Before I dig in on some of the stats here, I wanted to start off on some positive news. We were just informed a few days ago that we received a grant for $10,000 to cover the cost of our intern for the next year. So that is from the Murray and Agnes Season Good Government Foundation. So we're excited to hear that and see that, and it'll provide a great opportunity for a student that's in an MPA program to learn a little bit more about government and some of the things that we're doing here so that they can go out into society and do the same thing after they graduate. We hosted the Civic Orchestra at the community center last week. I was told it was a packed house, so it was great to see as many people coming out to hear all the great holiday tunes and to celebrate together as a group. Stats, so we are down slightly for park visitorship, but almost all of that is exclusively tied to Clippard Park. If you recall, last year we decided to split the parking lot in half, so a lot of that was cut-through traffic. What's really telling and exciting to me, our numbers in Heritage are almost exactly level, but our numbers at Colerain Park are up about 25,000. So we had two really exciting things this past summer with the goats and the launch of the new playground. And I believe that's a big reason that you're seeing that big increase there. So as you scroll down for other stats for us, we had 112 total road service requests over the past year. This reflects calls that come in to us, not what we're out proactively doing. It's something we've long been looking at. In the start of January next year, we're going to start reporting this number a little differently to capture all the work that we're doing, not just what gets called in and what we go out and fix in response to calls. Because those guys do a ton of work across our 114 miles of roadway that they maintain. And then finally, you can see on our litter numbers, November was another huge month. From this report, you can't see it, but when you click into it and you dive into the data more, you'll see now that we're starting to report what our volunteers are doing in the community. So I've identified those as volunteer, and then there's a little dash that gives their name so we can give them some thank you and recognition. And I know we've got some heavy hitters in the audience tonight. I believe Deb Hurst has done a ton of work cleaning up around Compton. So that's helping with the numbers, but also this is just a way to recognize and thank those who are out there keeping their neighborhoods clean. And if you're not signed up and want to help out and pitch in, check on Circle where we've got the stories posted, and we'll find a way to get you on our group. And that concludes my administrative report.
Thank you, Mr. Weckbach.
Thank you, Jeff.
And that concludes our administrative reports. Happy to answer any questions or move on.
Thanks, Jeff. The next on the agenda is the trustee report. If I don't mind, I'll go ahead first. I want to congratulate Kathy Ulrich, the trustee-elect, and also I want to congratulate our trustee, Dan Hunger, to serve another 4 more years.
Thank you, Raj.
You really love this township. You live. I know you got a heart to it, and it has been a great privilege for me to work with best trustees and Matt and Dan and great administration. You see, it's Jeff Mills and Jeff Weckbach, our great police officers, lieutenants, police chief, and fire chief. I'm really proud of this township, proud of Colerain. It's the best, beautiful township. It's got a rich heritage I've seen. I wish I would have done it more, but we got a COVID hit, a lot of things happened. But I thank our Colerain Township residents gave me the opportunity to serve the 4 years. But I really loved it. Each minute of it, I loved it. But I'll continue to serve as a private citizen to help our Colerain Township, anything possible. And I'm really thankful for the Colerain Historical Society invited me to be the board members. I'll work with the Northbrook community of neighborhoods, Groesbeck. Some of the things I promised, I've done it, but I will do it. I'll finish with something. I'll continue to help the township, a better place to live. And one thing here, Debbie gave me this nice gift, pictures of when I was in township, all these meetings, being with the people. Stephanie's here, Kathy's here, and all this neighborhood. Thank you, Debbie, and thank you for all the gift, and thank you for this great plaque. It means a lot to me. I've never seen one like this. It shows how much they really appreciate me as being a Colerain Township Trustee. Then again, I loved it, and I got a great privilege, served 4 years. I'll continue to do my best, a better place to live, help as a private citizen, being volunteering. Thank you. Thank you for the wonderful administration we have. And you guys I always used to tell you guys, it's a great dream team. And then you guys moving forward with the 2022 strategic planning. One thing I'm so happy to see, I'm leaving this township without no debts. And you guys have put this township real high, got the Moody rating high, and still a solid, sound Colerain Township, one of the best in the state of Ohio. Thank you. Go ahead, David.
You want to go, Matt?
Sure. Just a couple business points. So the next meeting, we'll have the 5 new speed signs. And Mr. Mills, we've talked too about, I think Mr. McElravy is working on a way to somehow have a line item for overtime in police and fire, or at least some kind of measure that we can have. I don't know that it's going to be, I don't know it's going to be the sharpest tool, but at least it'll be a tool to use, I'm thinking.
Yeah. Our accounting software, the UAN, doesn't allow us to break that out, but we can measure by hours, or and we can try to figure out measuring by cost. I feel like we can run that. Okay, great. And just everybody a Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and again, kind of reiterate, in life, I try to learn something new from every person I encounter. And just in 2 short years, I've learned so much from Raj about just putting your heart into government and things like that. I will never forget, when I had COVID for that long spell of like 2 weeks, Raj called me every day. Do you need anything? What do you need? How you feeling? And it really meant a lot. And I think that's how Raj, I think, treats everyone in his circle. And that's, I think I've gained a real understanding of just what it means to be empathetic and to be humble at the same time. So I've appreciated serving with you, and obviously this isn't the end of any kind of thing, because I'll be calling on you when I need advice, because you do even me out at times, and I need that. So I think I'll just echo what everybody said. I'm so appreciative of the service that you've given to the township, and thank you so much.
Thank you, Raj. Yes, congratulations to you, Raj. You've done a lot. You've sat down with different agencies, such as ODOT and Hamilton County, and just talked them till they gave up and gave us grant money, and that's huge. And you're really good at that, and that's a skill set. And with the Queen City Metro money for the bus pullouts, I know you've gone and argued for those things, and you've been successful. So congratulations, Jeff. Thank you for getting the gift together. That was paid for with 100% private funds, just so people know that. The speed meters that Matt is interested in, yes, I am interested in more of those too. Obviously, we don't talk outside of meetings. I didn't know that you had an interest. I've seen those reports. The report from Blue Rock, that's very eye-opening. It's 71 miles an hour on a road that's barely 20 feet wide, where the houses are set back 70 feet off the road. That's moving, and the data is amazing. Sometimes when you drive by them, you don't see a speed flash because it's still recording data, but it doesn't post the speed, and then we'll run it for a couple weeks with the speed posted so people can see how fast they're going. And I think they do make a difference, and they give us a lot of information. Yesterday, in that curve just south of Galbraith Road on Blue Rock, there was a stalled car in the curve in a very bad blind spot. And so me being me, I called 321 cops on my cell phone, and I realized that you need to start dialing 513-321 cops, because I think it was about a month ago that cell phone companies, and not a whole lot of people have landlines left, and that's been a big change I've seen in my lifetime, but now it's 513-321 cops, and then my own cell phone number is 513-404-3057, and I've, over the last few months, I've given that number to more and more and more people, and I'm really getting the calls on it. And Henry, you will certainly see one for 3554 Blue Rock Road, where some trash has begun to accumulate at a commercial building there, and I forwarded that to you, and I guess that's what you do with those, is send them along.
Yep.
It's been resolved?
Yes.
Where did they clean it up? I think I just sent that to you this morning.
We're good.
I'm going to go look.
Okay.
I'm going to go look when I leave this meeting. If you got all that junk out of there, that's something. What would you do? Go knock on her door or what?
The property management company called and said that a windstorm blew over some chairs that they
All
had.
that stuff has been sitting there for 2 months. That's not from a windstorm. I'm going to go look tonight when I leave. Some of the calls I've gotten are dog issues. I had an open burn call that I sent to Chief Walls, and I guess you got that resolved yesterday, and they just keep coming. And thank you to those that supported me. I'm thrilled to have another 4 years here, and I think we've gotten a lot of great stuff done. But I think you've kind of brushed over an issue that's very important to the group of people that I see sitting in this area, those of us that are residents of Colerain Township. It is absolutely huge that we've paid off the rest of our outstanding general obligation bonds. And those were paid off on schedule. We didn't really take any special action to do that, but what this board has done with Matt and Raj and myself and Greg for the first 2 years is we didn't embark on any big spending projects. And when you quit spending money that you don't have, you can pretty quickly dig yourself out of debt. And to me, that is the biggest accomplishment of this board in the 4 years that we've been here, is just to get the township out of long-term debt. We do have some leases on equipment and police cars and stuff, but that's absolutely huge. So to the residents of Colerain Township, I say congratulations. When we hit that point December 1st, I felt like I didn't want to pay off my house. It's a great place to be. You'd sleep a lot better at night. And thank you to the residents of the township that have trusted the three of us with the stewardship of the funds. And for everybody that lives here, congratulations to every one of you that pays your property taxes. You have dug the township out of debt. So congratulations, and with that, Merry Christmas to everybody. And we'll see you in January.
Thank you, Dan. The next on the agenda is a new business.
Yes, sir. The first items of new business come from our public safety departments, and I believe we'll begin with Chief Walls.
Good evening once again. We have a motion tonight to authorize the Township Administrator to enter into an agreement with Pro Alert for fire suppression system monitoring. The cost of that over a 5-year period is $18,696, and that's for monitoring at the impound lot, 4300 Springdale, 4200 Springdale, and 4160 Springdale Road.
I motion that we authorize the Township Administrator to enter an agreement with Pro Alert for fire suppression system monitoring.
I second that.
Any discussions?
Not from me.
Okay, Mr. Baker, roll call, please.
Mr. Unger?
Aye.
Mr. Rajagopal?
Aye.
Mr. Wallace?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief Walls. The next items will be presented by Chief Denny.
Welcome back, Chief.
Okay. The first item is adopting a motion authorizing the township administrator to release a request for proposals for trash abatement services. Currently, when the Board of Trustees declares a trash nuisance, our code enforcement staff undergoes a procurement process that involves soliciting 3 proposals each time trash abatement services are needed. With this RFP, we are seeking proposals for trash abatement services to reduce the amount of time between the declaration of the nuisance and the abatement and to identify the best possible price for the service.
I'll motion to authorize the township administrator to release a request for proposals for trash abatement services.
And I will second it.
Any discussions?
Yes, I would, and we've discussed this a few months ago. Upon award, I would suggest that we award to more than one vendor. And a few months ago when we discussed this, I used the example of what MSD does with their emergency services contract. It seems that the low bid is assigned about 50% of the work, and the second bid is assigned 30%, and the third bid is assigned 20%, because I'm afraid if we just have one vendor and they go, yes, we're busy, we'll get to it 3 weeks from now, sometimes we don't want to wait that long. So then you would go to the second vendor, but at least we'd have established pricing. And so when you award that, I'd suggest that we award to more than one vendor and just list them in the order of preference, maybe based on low bid or whatever the criteria is for awarding. Just to establish prices for the service. I don't know if the other trustees have a comment. I don't want to just have one vendor for that.
Yeah. Good, good. Any further discussions?
I mean, is that an issue, Jeff?
I'm just looking at the language right now to see. I don't think it's an issue, but if it is, we can bring back a new RFP next month.
Okay, yeah, we discussed this a couple months ago, it seems, and,
I don't think it'll be an issue.
okay, yeah, just, that's fine. That
So you're
answers
not-
my question.
Yeah, no, actually, I'm looking at it right now. Colerain Township reserves the right to reject any or all proposal, to award contracts in whole or in part, and to waive any informalities or irregularities in the submitted proposal. So, yeah.
That means we can award them more than one?
Whole or in part,
Okay,
yeah. I think that means that we can award it to.
great. Thank you. Nothing else.
Go ahead, Mr. Baker.
Mr. Unger?
Aye?
Mr. Rajagopal?
Aye.
Mr. Waller?
Aye.
Next item, recommend adoption of a resolution declaring a nuisance and ordering abatement for refuse and/or uncontrolled vegetation at the following properties: 2823 Brampton, 9830 Crusader, 6662 Daleview, 2848 Glen Air, 2848 Glen Air again, 2 different parcels there, 9936 Laurelinda, 2710 Haverhill, 8371 Jackie's, 9975 Marino, 3178 Palmyra, 8285 Pippin, 3515 Redskin, 8240 Royal Heights, 10,123 Season, 10,032 Sturgeon, and 8798 Venus.
I'll motion to declare nuisance and order abatement at 2823 Brampton, 9830 Crusader, 6662 Daleview, 2848 Glen Air, 2848 Glen Air additional plot, 9936 Laurelinda, 2210 Haverhill, 2710 Haverhill, I'm sorry, 8371 Jackie's, 9975 Marino, 3178 Palmyra, 8285 Pippin, 3515 Redskin, 8240 Royal Heights, 10123 Season, 10032 Sturgeon, 8798 Venus.
I'll second Matt's motion.
Any discussions?
Yes, could you read the address that you just read on Daleview again, Matt?
6662.
Okay, yeah, I thought you said 0, so that's clarified.
Okay, I may have, I don't know. I meant to say 6662.
Okay. No other questions?
Mr. Baker, roll call, please.
Mr. Unger?
Aye?
Mr. Rajagopal?
Aye.
Mr. Waller?
Aye.
Next item, recommend adoption of a motion to declare and order abatement of a junk motor vehicle at the following property: 2710 Haverhill. It's a silver Honda Pilot, no license plate.
A motion to resolve declaring a junk and motor vehicle, 2710 Haverhill Drive, a silver Honda Pilot, year unknown, no plates.
I'll second it.
Any discussions?
No.
Mr. Baker, roll call, please. I'm sorry?
Let's go ahead and vote on it, and then he can comment on
Unger?
that question. Aye.
Mr. Rajagopal?
Aye.
Mr. Waller?
Aye.
Move forward.
What is the process on that, just for clarity?
I can find out.
Vehicles
the-
are tagged?
I think they are sent a certified letter, and there's a period of time that has to elapse from the notice of that, but I could get you a more definite answer to it.
Okay, we do sticker them, though, and put a date on them.
Oh, yeah, we go through the whole
The
process.
ones I've seen, I've seen a very clear,
Yes. It's put on the front door and
Sticker.
part of the vehicle itself, yes.
right,
But yeah, they get a certified letter. Okay, recommend adoption of a motion to declare and order abatement of a junk motor vehicle at the following property: 2848 Glen Air, red Dodge Dakota, no year, no plates.
I move to declare a junk motor vehicle at 2848 Glen Air, red Dodge Dakota, year unknown, no plates.
I will second it.
Go ahead. Any discussions?
No.
None.
Mr. Baker, please.
Mr. Unger?
Aye.
Mr. Rajagopal?
Aye.
Mr. Waller?
Aye.
Recommend adoption of a motion to declare and order abatement of a junk motor vehicle at the following property: 3001 Niagara Street, Brown GMC, Ohio license plate GSP 3783.
I'll motion to declare a junk motor vehicle, 3001 Niagara Street, a Brown GMC van, year unknown, Ohio GSP 3783.
I will second it.
Any discussions?
Is that white pickup truck still sitting over there?
I don't know. I'll find it from Henry.
It's on the street. It probably could be towed. I don't think it has a plate on it, and we've talked about it for
I'll ask Henry.
quite a
where he's at on
while.
that.
No other comments.
Mr. Baker, roll call, please.
Mr. Unger?
Aye.
Mr. Rajagopal?
Aye.
Mr. Waller?
Aye.
Recommend adoption of a motion to declare and order abatement of a junk motor vehicle at the following property: 3345 Deschler, black Dodge 4x4, no license plate, no tags.
I'll motion to declare a junk motor vehicle at 3345 Deschler Drive, a black Dodge 4x4 truck, year unknown, tags, no tags.
I'll Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I second it.
Any discussions? Oh. Mr. Baker, roll call, please.
Mr. Unger?
Aye.
Mr. Rajagopal?
Aye.
Mr. Waller?
Aye.
Recommend adoption of a motion to declare and order abatement of the junk motor vehicle at the following property: 9975 Merino Drive, a dark Toyota truck, 1994, with a VIN number of 4 TAR N01 P4RZ 200355.
I'll motion to declare a junk motor vehicle, 9975 Merino Drive. It's a dark Toyota truck, 1994. Vehicle identification number 4TARN01 P4RZ 200355.
I'll second it.
Any discussions?
None.
Mr. Baker, roll call, please.
Mr. Unger?
Aye.
Mr. Rajagopal?
Aye.
Mr. Waller?
Aye.
Final item is recommend adoption of a motion to declare and order abatement of the junk motor vehicle at the following property: 10,028 Crusader Drive. It's a tan Jeep Cherokee, Ohio license FRH 4915.
I'll motion to recommend the adoption of a motion to declare and order abatement of junk motor vehicle at the following property: 10028 Crusader Drive, a tan Jeep Cherokee, year unknown, Ohio tag FRH 4915.
I'll second it.
Any discussions?
None.
None.
Mr. Baker, roll call, please.
Mr. Unger?
Aye.
Mr. Rajagopal?
Aye.
Mr. Waller?
Aye.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, Chief.
Thanks, Chief.
I'd like to invite Mr. Weckbach up to present the items of new business in the public service.
Hello again, Board. The first item I have for you tonight is a motion to issue a request for bids for the 2022 road program. So, consistent with past practice, this calls for a 2-inch mill and fill on the following streets: Baytown Drive, Sella Drive, Deer Hollow, Greenhaven Court, Jody Lynn Court, McGill Lane, Merritt View Lane, Montezuma Drive, Quaker Court, Regal Lane, Swissvale Court, and Wheatfield Drive. If we get this motion for bid out ASAP, we will have bids back on January 3rd with the intent of having a contract ready to go at the trustee meeting in January. And I'll recommend adoption of the motion.
I motion that we issue a request for bids for the 2022 road program.
I second it.
Mr. Weckbeck had a couple questions. For some reason, I didn't have Cellar Drive, I had Hermes. Is that a previous?
Yeah, so there were a few streets that were on the 5-year road plan that no longer are needed because of skip issues. So those streets like Hermes, for example, were going to be skipped, but then did not meet the criteria for skip, and so we're going to push those to a future year.
Okay, and looking at the kind of the request that you've got this starting at 122 with, I don't know, I guess this is kind of construction, the final punch list of November of 22. And it's odd because they're not going to penalize us if they're late, which is kind of an odd thing. Is there a penalty for them being late, or is there, I'm not saying if it goes December or January, but these things have been known to stretch out. What is the?
We could penalize. I think in the past our practice has been not to, just because there is a limited number of road contractors in this area, and when you start to do that, then your bids start to come in higher just to build in for the potential for a penalty if, asphalt plants close down earlier or whatever else may be impacting whether or not they can get the work done.
And does that take away some of our leverage then if we don't have a penalty for late, or is it pretty standard practice for no townships or cities to?
I'd say it's pretty standard practice to deal with weather issues and dealing with Duke or the waterworks if they want to fix something before we pave. There are so many moving parts in a road program. And I know of a couple streets that just got their curbs that were probably due 6 months ago, but we don't pay the bill till when they submit a request for payment. We only pay for work completed, and there's just a lot of moving parts in a road program, but I digress.
These specs came from the county engineers. We've been using their specs for years, and other townships in Hamilton County use the same document.
Okay, because my concern is if we don't have a penalty, others do, then, okay. But that, you've answered my question.
So, the biggest problem is getting the contractors.
Right.
It's a huge problem, I think we can probably
Now, on
get that threshold.
On the flip side, in this case, our contractor wasn't able to finish the 21 program, so he's going to be coming back next year to finish the 22, and whether or not that leads to more competitive rates with the 22 contract because he's able to save on mobilization, or if a different contractor understands that and then wants to put in a different quote. So we'll find out in January if that does impact bids or not.
Okay, the bid process, and when they give the quote now, will that, if they're not done because due to this, all this COVID thing, would they sustain the same amount? If they come back next year, or they're gonna change that amount?
Price stays the same. It cannot exceed the bid amount. More often than not, they come in far under bid, and we might be able to add a road that we weren't anticipating within that same scope.
Okay. Any further discussions?
No.
Okay, Mr. Baker?
Mr. Unger?
Aye.
Mr. Rajagopal?
Aye.
Mr. Waller?
Aye.
Thank you, Board. The next item is a first reading of a resolution adopting a special assessment policy. So as Mr. Mills alluded to earlier in previous meetings, we've been discussing our road program and how we have a shortfall if you want to have a 30-year road replacement cycle. We also understand that there are times when residents really want their road to be moved up on the list, and for whatever reason, they're not as bad a shape as, say, the roads that we're going to be doing in the next 5 years. And so we wanted to bring this forward for your all's consideration as another tool to have in the toolkit to extend our road dollars further if a neighborhood or a street was motivated enough that they wanted to pay for it themselves. In the rationale here, you see this open-ended series of questions where we do want feedback from you all if you want us to pursue a policy like this. And that's really about how we structure sort of the fine details of what a special assessment process would look like. Our neighboring township, Springfield Township, does this. They do it based off a percentage, or not a percentage, but an assumed millage for each homeowner, which is a different way of doing it than how we currently do, say, our sidewalk assessment program, where it's based off of your frontage. And so those are two considerations that I'd like to call out that would help us to draft the final policy. And, you know, whether or not that's being spread out individually per each home, or if it's being spread out based on who has more street length or whatever else that might be. So those are some policy considerations that I would like for you all to think about. Whether or not you're prepared to talk about that today or at the next meeting, either way is fine with us. So,
Did have a quick question on this, on the petitions. Who counts as a signature? Is it the person on the deed, the person on
property owner.
Property owner. Is it one? If it's owned by two, is it just one signature?
They both actually have to sign. This is something that comes up a lot with our lighting districts as well, and you have to have both property owners sign off for it to count for one.
So, and this is, and then it said that the law department then matches the petitions. So if they're not a registered voter, I mean, you know, all three of us up here are used to looking at petitions and registered voters and comparing them to the screen. What process is it? It's just based upon who's listed downtown?
I think we typically send the petitions to you all, and you just review them for accuracy to make sure that the signature conforms with the property owner's name, not necessarily with whether or not they're a registered owner or voter, I should say.
Right, but as far as you're okaying the signature, then you don't really have anything to compare it to if it's not a registered voter.
That would be correct.
Okay.
Jeff, this road program, the assessment thing, how would you convey this information to the residents? How do they find out about this kind of program we're offering?
Yeah, so if we decided to adopt a policy like this, I would envision that we would put a specific page on our website that explained how this would work functionally and operationally. We have one now for lighting districts that hopefully helps to answer some of those questions for residents. But it's also just something that would come up in conversation. So whether the three of you are out talking to residents and somebody's saying, hey, look at the condition of my street, I'd really like for it to get repaved. Typically, you guys could go online and look at where they are in the rating scale, and you might go, well, actually, you all are number 100 on the list. It means we're probably not going to get to you for a while. But if you and your neighbors feel strongly about it, here's this process. So I'd envision it'd be a lot of word of mouth, but then also a little bit of dedicated just space on the website.
I understand you're going to put it on the website and everything. So a lot of people may not have the access to look at it. Is there any way if that, we know, the public works department know what the bad roads are.
Yep.
While they're there, could they able to give out some flyers?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, that's an easy thing
to the neighbors, like a printed material?
Yeah.
So they know we're offering this type of program?
Yeah. And oftentimes our guys, when they're out, whether it's patching potholes or fixing storm basins, they do have residents come up to them and talk to them about A, what they're doing, but B, some of their other concerns. And we expect that they provide customer service, and I hear most of the time that they do. And my expectation would be if somebody asks for a document that we'd find a way to get them that information.
The process on a county road that doesn't have sewer service, because I've seen this firsthand, is if they want to get a petition to have a public sewer installed, they have to ask every resident the yes or no question, and you go down to MSD and turn in a sheet that says, I asked Jeff Weckbach and he said no. I asked Bruce and Bruce said yes. And then it takes 51% of the residents to establish that, and then they would put the cost of constructing the sewer against the houses, but they do it for a long period of 20 or 30 years. So every homeowner would get contacted. It isn't like you could get a cabal of a few of them and go ahead and force it in, but this is just the first reading, so.
Yep.
Good.
And so any other feedback that you all have is greatly appreciated. And
It's a great program, Jeff. It's good. Good.
thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Weckbach. The next items in new business are in the development department. I'll present those. First item is a motion to approve the 2022 meeting and submission dates for the zoning commission. You'll see in the agenda packet, there's a list of meeting dates and the required submission deadlines for 2022. Recommendation is to adopt the motion.
I'll motion to approve the 2022 meeting and submission dates for the zoning commission.
I'll second it.
Any discussions?
None from me.
Mr. Baker, roll call, please.
Mr. Unger?
Aye.
Mr. Rajagopal?
Aye.
Mr. Waller?
Aye.
Thank you, Board. The next item is a similar motion, but for the BZA. It's a motion to approve the 2022 meeting and submission dates for the Board of Zoning Appeals. Those dates are in your packet as well. Recommendation is to adopt the motion.
I'll motion to approve the 2022 meeting and submission dates for the Board of Zoning Appeals.
I second it. Any discussions?
None from me.
Mr. Baker, roll call, please.
Mr. Unger?
Aye.
Mr. Rajagopal?
Aye.
Mr. Waller?
Aye.
Thank you, Board. The next item is a motion to appoint members to the Board of Zoning Appeals. The recommendation is to adopt a motion to appoint Mr. Kevin Wilson as the primary board member position for a 5-year term, which would expire December 31st, 2026.
I motion that we approve Kevin Wilson for that term.
I'm sorry, I'll second. I'm trying to find the exact,
Yeah, I was waiting for that to come up as well.
154.
there we go, thank you.
Okay. You going to second?
Yes.
Okay. Any discussions?
All these appointments, I don't know any of these people. They're not my friends. This is nobody that I'm asking to be appointed, just to be clear for that. Except I do see you've got, has he got 2 L's in Wilson?
Probably not. Yeah, that's probably a typo.
That's, with the exception of that typo, I'm fine.
Jeff, it was brought to my attention, when this vacancy occurs in the zoning, what type of announcement do you make for the people the residents can apply? You know, some residents complain that they didn't know about it.
Sure.
They feel like was it a fair interview process?
Okay, yeah, so the process is, the boards and commission application is available on our website. Folks apply throughout the year. Usually, as we approach, this time of year, we put out through all of our communication channels, apply for board of commission, boards or commissions. Interviews are conducted typically by the zoning administrator or the planning director or development director. Those recommendations are made to me, and then I pass them on to you all. We've got a lot of really wonderful people in our community that are willing to serve, and these 3 that were being recommended are among the best.
Good.
Yep.
Thank you.
I will say, though, Mr. Rajagopal, you do get to a good point that we are not good at communicating right now. We do not do a good job of communication, and that's something that I'd like to improve.
Okay, any further discussions? No. Mr. Baker, roll call, please.
Mr. Unger?
Aye.
Mr. Rajagopal?
Aye.
Mr. Waller?
Aye.
Thank you, Board. The next item is a motion to appoint members to the Zoning Commission. The recommendation is to adopt this motion. Recommend adopting a motion that would appoint the following 2 members to the Zoning Commission due to the expiration of terms. Mr. Al Grody is currently the chairman of the Zoning Commission. We recommend his reappointment for a 5-year term, which would expire December 31st, 2026. And Mr. Tim Bachman be appointed to the alternate board position, the alternate board member position for a 2-year term that would expire December 31st, 2023.
I motion that we would approve those 2 appointments.
I'll second.
Any discussions?
Just thank you to everyone who's willing to serve on that board.
Mr. Baker, roll call, please.
Mr. Unger?
Aye.
Mr. Rajagopal?
Aye.
Mr. Waller?
Aye.
Very good. The next item does not need to be considered. It was related to the public hearing that didn't occur earlier today. With that, we move to administration, and I bet I'm moving too fast for Mr. McElravy, who is watching this in his office right now. But I will go ahead and introduce this. This is a resolution authorizing, a resolution authorizing the adoption of temporary, Yes, this is a resolution adopting temporary appropriations for 2022. This is kind of a big deal. This is our budget for 2022. It is shared with the board here at the fund level in our strategic plan and budget. It is presented in, some might say, excruciating, in painful detail. You can get down into as much detail as you would like to learn about our budget and where your money goes to provide the services that we do. So the recommendation is to approve this resolution.
I motion that we approve the resolution authorizing the adoption of temporary appropriations for the year 2022.
Second.
Go ahead, Matt, go ahead.
Second.
Any discussions?
And I should have asked this question when we spoke the other day, Jeff. The Ohio Public Works Commission, Breezy Way, Fund 4409, off the top of your head, do you know what that is?
Yes, I do. That's a zero interest loan that is made through the Ohio Public Works Commission. That
Is that money that is still owed for the,
Yes, yeah. So that's a zero interest loan that we got. It was, I believe that project was half grant, half loan, a zero interest. So,
okay, and that probably pays off the rest of it, or,
no, we've got some time to go there.
but it's Ohio Public Works Commission
Yes.
stuff, okay,
It's not general obligation.
okay. No other questions?
Usually, our budget's around about $41 million in the past. Now we are down to almost 1 million, right? What cost it?
Yeah, that's a good question. So a lot of our big capital projects drive that change between, the 36 and the 42. So there are some years, for example, when we've done significant amount of road work. There's years when we've passed through a significant amount of grant money. Years when we get COVID money. Years where we get ARP money. And so those are all the $1 million fluctuations that you see. As the fire chief mentioned, our operations remain pretty stable, and the biggest increases that we are looking at are due to cost of personnel, salaries, and that because we provide service and we do that with people. So,
Thank you, Jeff.
yep.
Any further questions? Discussions?
None from me.
Okay. Mr. Baker, roll call, please.
Mr. Unger?
Aye?
Mr. Rajagopal?
Aye.
Mr. Waller?
Aye.
Thank you, Board. The next item on the agenda is a resolution adopting the organizational chart and job descriptions. So each year we bring to the Board an organizational chart. Those are the people that you authorize us to fill per our policy. This aligns with our 2022 strategic plan and budget book. In addition to the organizational chart, there are job descriptions for every role in the organization. New descriptions that were created this year to Ms. Moore's question earlier include the communications specialist and the assistant police chief role. There's also some updates to pay bands that were included, and minor updates to other job descriptions that coincide with changing roles related to restructuring of various departments. So the recommendation is to adopt the organizational chart and job descriptions as presented.
I'll motion to adopt the organizational chart and job descriptions.
I'll second it.
Mr. Mills, I think it might have been Ms. Moore that mentioned, if we could put like the revision dates on the job descriptions. I know it comes within the packet, which it'll have the date on the front, but if you look at it, I think standalone, to know that this was, when this was last revised
Sure.
would be, I think, a good idea.
Jeff, in this organizational chart, you added like a communications
Specialist.
for a specialist.
Yes, sir.
That's doesn't necessarily, because in the job in the description, we're compelled to hire the person?
Not
Not
compelled,
necessarily.
but it
It's still up to the board.
Well, it authorizes the administrator to fill that position, so.
It's up to the board whether you authorize to hire or not.
Yeah,
To
that's
find
what
out.
per the hiring policy, the authorization to fill a position is granted with the adoption of the organizational chart and job description. So this allows for me to post that position, fill, and make a conditional offer of employment.
Which the board would ultimately have to approve that.
Actually, the policy says that it's my responsibility to hire non-department head individuals, but I always make conditional offers of employment and then bring that to the Board of Trustees. So,
Go ahead.
yeah.
Any further discussion? Matt, you got any discussions?
Just before you hire that person, please consult with the board
Yeah, of course.
before you make that offer. 'Cause I know that's been something we've bounced around for a couple years, and I heard you say earlier about the communication, and we should probably hear from the new trustee on that before we move forward on it, if we do.
You got
So
it.
please bring that one to the trustees
Absolutely.
before anything's done with it.
Yep.
And I think you and I have talked about alternative positions with, maybe splitting.
Yeah, that's an option, yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think I'm with Mr. Unger in that I haven't amended the org chart, but this communication specialist, I think, is going to be a longer discussion.
Okay. All right, any further,
Got it.
Okay.
any further questions? Discussions? Mr. Baker, roll call, please.
Mr. Unger?
Aye.
Mr. Rajagopal?
Aye.
Mr. Waller?
Aye.
Thank you, Board. The next item is a motion to establish a merit pool of $91,218.24 and authorize the administrator to grant raises for non-union township employees. So in the township, we have two different types of employees. Those that collectively bargain for their wage, those are represented by a union. And then we have folks that are not represented by a union, and those folks are the ones that would be included in this merit pool. The idea here is that that raises are given based on two factors. One is their performance as compared to others in the organization, and the other is their salary as compared to others in the region that do their job. So we're trying to get to at least the median salary for the roles in the region to be competitive and retain talent. We also want to reward people that work hard and perform well. We could do a whole hour-long presentation on how this process works, the art and the science to it, but the long and the short of it is this is not an across-the-board 3% raise. This is an establishment of a merit pool that is given out based on merit, on performance, and on salary. So that does not mean that everybody gets a 3% raise. So the recommendation is to adopt this motion, and happy to answer any questions.
I motion that we establish a merit pool of $91,218.24 and authorize the administrator to grant raises for non-union township employees.
I seconded. Any discussions?
Yes, and when I started here, when you were doing this 4 years ago, that figure did not include the extended cost of benefits and matches. So the $91,000 does include that now,
Yes.
which, because 4 years ago, that was a lower number, and I asked, please, when you present that number, present it with all the cost included. So just to be clear, that
Yes, sir.
includes all the cost.
Yes, sir.
No other comments from me, Raj.
And you and I have had that 1 hour discussion on what goes into that. And for those out there watching, there's a number of, as a teacher, I'm familiar with this, or teachers out there, there's a number of rubrics where the things are, that it's not a randomness. It's very, very quantitative, and it has qualitative measures too. And that was my first question is, wait a second, how are you giving out these merit things? Because it seems to me that could be a situation to cause some bad blood in organizations and stuff. And the tools that are used for it are pretty impressive from what I saw last year when we went over it.
The tools that Matt talked about, mostly performance evaluation.
Yeah, it's very data-driven. So there's a performance evaluation. There's an annual performance evaluation that's broken up into a number of different sections. 40% of your annual performance evaluation is how well our employees do at achieving your goals, the strategic plan goals. So the other 60% is made up in part of core competencies, and then leadership, attendance, wellness, et cetera. That makes up the performance piece. Then to benchmark you against your peers in the region, we use a huge amount of data that's provided, that we have, and we benchmark where you're at compared to others that do your job in the region. And based on those two factors, your merit raise is granted.
And there are two, not to get too nerdy about this, there are two things that typically happen in government kind of structures is that, number one, bureaucrats, and I mean that as in a non-elected position, become loyal to not the township, but to their department as a whole. And the methods that you use to this encourage reflective decision-making. So one thing that we know statistically is that when people make decisions about policy in government at any level, they're very reluctant to change those decisions. We have quantitative data that says this overwhelmingly. The tools that Mr. Mills used ask the employees to be reflective decision makers so that there's so that they don't get caught up in the groupthink or I'm going to protect my bureaucratic sphere or my silo first. It encourages it doesn't penalize people for going outside the box and thinking things in new terms, and then that's rated every year from a number of multiple scales. It's pretty impressive. Sorry, I had to.
No, great. That's a great analysis. So like Dan mentioned about the numbers, I also noticed the number remains same.
3%.
Past years.
Yeah, and that's despite the fact that, the consumer price index is going
Inflation.
up. Inflation is real, and so it's below the inflationary rate, 3%.
Which affects all of us in private business also.
That's right.
To probably a degree even more.
Sure.
Any further discussions? Mr. Baker, roll call, please.
Mr. Unger?
Aye.
Mr. Rajagopal?
Aye.
Mr. Wallace?
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay,
Go ahead.
yeah, so the next item on the agenda is a motion authorizing the township administrator to execute an addendum to a contract with Rumpke. The recommendation is to adopt this motion. This addendum doesn't create a new contract. It extends our existing contract with Rumpke for waste hauling services from our township facilities. It also provides portalets to our parks. You may notice Heritage, for example, there is no sewage treatment down there, and so we use portalets. It also adds 10 street cans along Colerain Avenue in alignment with our strategic goal to make Colerain more clean with less litter, reduce dumping. So with weekly trash pickup service on those 10 cans. The term of the proposed addendum ends December 31st, 2024, and the cost is $1,778.50 per month. Recommendation is to adopt.
I would motion that we authorize the township administrator to execute an addendum to a contract with Rumpke.
I second it. Any discussions?
Yes, the picking up cans on Colerain Avenue is a dangerous enterprise. I guess they would be doing that in the middle of the night, I hope, which is probably outside of their normal
I don't
service
know.
hours. But I mean, that's just, I know you don't know, but I mean, that's just, I wouldn't want to be out there at any time that's a very dangerous thing to be doing. So, and staying on the pavement rather than pulling into a parking lot, pulling into a private lot and picking up those cans. And I guess there's a plan of exactly where they're going.
There are 10 locations, yes, identified.
Okay.
So the Rumpke will provide all the cans and everything?
Yes, sir.
Okay. How do they, especially Colerain Avenue, most likely, is going to be anchored, fenced out, something like that?
I'm sorry?
Some other cities, they have like a built-in cage like that where they put the trash cans inside, so the people won't
Yeah.
walk away with the trash cans?
Yeah, these will be very heavy-duty public cans, similar to what you see in other cities. Very heavy, hopefully immovable, and they'd be located on the street and picked up and serviced by the Rumpke provider.
Okay, good. This very neat, this one of our project of beautification
Yes, sir.
plan, our strategic planning, especially Colerain Avenue. This is very essential. We need to have that because it looks terrible.
Yeah,
First house.
Yes, sir.
And like I mentioned earlier, eventually, when they build the bus pull-out, will be a part of the program. Metro will provide that, take away that expenses from us.
That would be fantastic, and we'll make that phone call.
Okay.
Yep.
Any further questions? Discussions? Yeah. Okay. Mr. Baker, roll call, please.
Mr. Unger?
Aye.
Mr. Rajagopal?
Aye.
Mr. Waller?
Aye.
Thank you, Board. Next item on the agenda is a motion authorizing the Township Administrator to execute an agreement with Guide Studios for branding services. Mr. Weckbach, would you like to present this one?
Good evening, Mr. Weckbach.
Hello again, everyone. So,
Very Christmassy today.
yeah, I was trying to get in the holiday spirit a little bit, so I've got Christmas socks on as well. All right, so the motion before you is to authorize the Township Administrator to enter into an agreement with Guide Studio for branding services. You'll recall at a meeting several months ago, we put out an RFP for this. We received 2 responses back. One from Guide Studio for $39,000, another from City Champs for $70,000. Staff met and reviewed these both proposals with both vendors. My honest perspective and take is that both vendors could do the job and do it very well. There's just a clear price difference between the two of them. Guide Studio has a strong track record of municipal brands in the Midwest. As mentioned by others in the audience today, they've done Westchester's brand. They've done, I believe it was a few other communities outside of Columbus. They've done some in Wisconsin. So they have a tried and true method that they use, and they'd be bringing that to Colerain as part of this process if approved. So with that, I would recommend adoption of the motion.
I'll motion to authorize the Township Administrator to enter into an agreement with Guide Studio for branding services.
I second it. So this is the one, any discussion, so.
Sure. And to answer a question that was brought up earlier, no, I don't want to be Westchester or any other community. I want to be the unique community that we are, with a lot of really great things going on here. And I guess it's a feeling of the administration that this would help promote that and maybe draw a few more businesses here and get our name out there so people kind of understood what we're doing here. There's, tens of thousands of communities in the United States, and you think this would give us a little bit of a leg up on a bunch of them, and that's kind of what you're thinking is, I suppose. Okay.
So this is something I brought to you, I think, my first day as trustee. I looked into this pretty deeply. So not only do they, they have the 3-step process: the engagement, design, and implementation. And you know what, design, and we've heard multiple people talk about designs before. It's the implementation, I think, that's key to this. Mr. Weckbach used a couple of examples. And these are, I don't know why we're throwing around Westchester, but we will. They're not all Westchester type communities. I mean, you have Westchester, where families grow and businesses prosper. South Euclid could never be considered a kind of Westchester. Much different type of demographics come together and thrive. University Heights, so much more than home. And the one that was very kind of out there and impressive is Paynesville. The Paynesville Promise, and they did the Paynesville rebranding. And it's interesting because they linked education to Paynesville, so that once you graduate from, Paynesville Community College there, once you graduate from Paynesville, it links education. So it really tries a rising tide on both education and local government. So it's, I think, and they did Delhi, and anybody that Delhi Jack says is good is probably good, so. Another St. X grads, class of 87. And I like the idea that, you look at the Y'alls, the Ode to Kentucky Culture. I think there's an understanding of how to place this appropriately in the marketplace, so that you're not taking like a cookie cutter and making you like just forcing something and making you like someone else. It'll capture this, and it'll be a plan for, hopefully soon we'll have a development director that can push this to its goal, and I think it'll be a good map.
Jeff, for this group, going to consult with the local, the community group like Colerain Historical Society, the neighborhood, what their expectation is, because they know everything about Colerain. What is, like Matt said, Colerain is a Colerain special. Like Bruce said, it's not going to be like a Westchester or something. It's got a unique character and historic. We still have to maintain that unique character and image of what Colerain is. Yep. And so are they going to do that? And also we talked about the big thing in the bridge. That's the biggest concern of our residents. In the past years, they're talking about what's going to happen to the bridge. The 274 thing. Are we going to, is it part of the project and the designing?
Do you want to talk about the engagement a little bit?
Yeah, so I think, one of the things that we all recognize is if we have a brand that doesn't accurately and adequately reflect who we are, it's not going to be embraced and it's not going to be successful. And with both of these proposals, I think they both have robust engagement built in, understanding that they need to really identify what our identity is, so that then when they come out with those materials at the end that are part of the implementation, so when they come out with what our logo should be, and they've got our brand guides that say this logo should be used in this setting, we'll know, okay, we need to update our bridge to look consistent with our overall township brand. Which logo should that be? Why is that logo being used versus this logo? And there's this whole document that kind of spells out when, where, why, and how for. So, when it comes to different members of our community, I think Historical Society, other groups like that are easy ones that we can have come to the table to engage with them and to get feedback as it relates to where we are and where we're going.
Thank you, John.
Yep.
I think it's clearly a directional issue. I mean, to draw an analogy, today I'm working with sophomores in my world history class, and they're like, how do you do a thesis? And I'm like, well, what are you trying to prove first? You don't make a thesis, then use your data to support the thesis you make. You look at your data or your documents or your primary sources and then come up with your argument. And that's kind of both of these firms do that, just one for a lot less.
That's a doctoral dissertation.
There you go.
That's it. It'll be a next dissertation for you.
There you go.
Good. Thanks, Matt. Any further discussions?
Matt, I know this is something you've been interested in pushing for a while. It's something you probably have a greater understanding of than I do. So,
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Baker, roll call, please.
and I do get it. This is why my wife doesn't let me pick out stuff. But I get it, so.
Mr. Unger?
Aye.
Mr. Rajagopal?
Aye.
Mr. Waller?
All right.
Thank you, Board.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you, Board. Next item is a motion to appoint Trustee Unger as the representative to Board of Directors of the Ohio, Kentucky, Indiana Regional Council of Governments, and Administrator Mills is the alternate member. Mr. Unger has been the representative to this board since January 2018. I've been the alternate since 2016. Recommendation is adoption of the motion.
I'll motion to appoint Trustee Unger as a representative to the Board of Directors at the Ohio, Kentucky, Indiana Regional Council of Governments, and Administrator Mills is the alternate member.
I seconded. Any discussions?
Yes, and we did get a letter demanding that we renew our appointment.
That's right, and that's the reason it's being brought today and not at the organizational meeting is because the OKI timeline is
Right.
requires us to move faster.
They sent me a letter, and so that's my only comment. I don't see any harm in voting for myself if I choose to.
They did a great job in the past. That's your
Thanks for-
expertise.
and
That's the expertise.
Enjoy watching on TV in January when you're.
That's the expertise, and you did a lot of, you
You'll be
get a lot of
changing the
OKI
channel
grant.
on me.
You get a lot of OKI grant for the Colerain projects and everything.
I think it's important that we're represented there, and I know.
Oh, definitely.
Jeff's been able to go to a lot of
You'd
the
be a great
meetings, so.
person for that. We're proud of you. Thank you for doing this. Any further discussions? Mr. Baker, roll call, please.
Mr. Unger?
Aye.
Mr. Rajagopal?
Aye.
Mr. Waller?
Aye.
Thank you, Board. The next item on the agenda is a motion to accept the Ohio Plan's proposal for property and casualty liability insurance. Our insurance broker, Hylant, has brought the attached proposal for 2022. The overall cost, including premiums, fees, and credits, including our broker's flat compensation, comes to a 5.5% increase. This is a favorable rate given the current market conditions and the loss ratio that we are currently operating under. The increase in our premiums from 21 to 22 are $249,774 this year to $263,617 next year. Recommendation is to adopt the motion.
A motion to accept the Ohio Plans proposal for property casualty liability insurance.
I'll second.
Any discussions?
I trust your research on this, and Mr. Mills?
Yep.
Okay.
Mr. Baker?
Could you repeat the total, please?
$263,617.
Thank you.
And I don't anticipate us self-insuring under this anytime soon.
Our loss ratio is a little under 60% right now,
Okay.
which is high for property and
Right,
casualty liability.
right, that's really high.
Any further discussions?
Not from me.
Mr. Baker, roll call, please.
Mr. Unger?
Aye.
Mr. Rajagopal?
Aye.
Mr. Waller?
All right.
Thank you, Board. Next item on the agenda is a motion to set a public hearing for the Dunlop Grove Lighting District for January 11th, 2022 at 7 p.m. at 4200 Springdale Road.
I'll motion to set a public hearing for the Dunlap Grove Lighting District on January 11th, 2022 at 7 p.m., 4200 Springdale Road.
I second it. Any discussions?
Not from me.
I think one of my goals was making a lighting districts, everything. We started in Niagara, and we did that, very successful. And then COVID hit next year, people had a hard time getting the signatures and everything. I'm really appreciate that. It's one of my goals that I want someday the whole Colerain neighborhoods lit with the lights.
Yep.
You know, thanks for doing that. And so, any further discussions?
Not for Dunlap Grove, no.
Okay. Mr. Baker, roll call, please.
Mr. Unger?
Aye.
Mr. Rajagopal?
Aye.
Mr. Waller?
All right.
Thank you, Board. The next item is a motion to set a public hearing for a lighting district at Hunter's Ridge. This is the new phase at Hunter's Ridge. I'd like to set that public hearing for January 11th, 2022 at 7 p.m. here at 4200 Springdale Road. Recommend adoption.
I'll motion to set a public hearing, public hearing for the Hunters Ridge 2021 Lighting District, January 11th, 2022 at 7 p.m. at 4200 Springdale Road.
I second it. Any discussions?
Yes, is that supposed to be the 2021 lighting district or 2022? On item I, under administration.
I'm not sure that it matters, but.
Because we
would
went
it-
and got the petitions have already been turned in for it?
Yeah,
So it's probably is 2021?
Yep.
Perhaps?
Yep.
Either way, there's a public hearing set for that date, pending a affirmative vote. Okay. No other comments?
Okay. Mr. Baker, roll call, please.
Mr. Unger?
Aye.
Mr. Rajagopal?
Aye.
Mr. Waller?
All right.
thank you, Board. The next item is a motion to set a public hearing on the sidewalk maintenance assessments for portions of Arborwood, Grovewood, and Springdale. That public hearing would be held on January 11th, 2022 at 7 p.m. here at 4200 Springdale Road. This public hearing would be held related to our sidewalk maintenance program, which we discussed a little bit earlier, but uses community development block grant dollars to fix broken sidewalks and allows residents to spread the cost of that out over 5 years on their property taxes at no interest.
Motion to set a public hearing, sidewalk maintenance assessment, portions of Arborwood, Grovewood, and Springdale, January 11th, 2022 at 7 p.m., 4200 Springdale Road.
I second it. Any discussions?
Not from me.
Okay. This is one of our strategic goals, sidewalks, road program. You know, we are right on target, building sidewalks and roads and everything. You know, I appreciate, doing this. Any further discussions?
Not from me.
Mr. Baker, roll call, please.
Mr. Unger?
Aye.
Mr. Rajagopal?
Aye.
Mr. Waller?
Aye.
Excellent. Thank you, Board. I'd like to invite our Finance Director, Mr. Jeff McElravy, up to present the next item, the next two items.
Good evening.
Good evening, Jeff.
So the resolution before you amends the appropriations for two funds for this current year, for 2021, as opposed to the prior resolution that the board just approved several items ago for 2022. The two funds where there are changes in appropriation for 2021 are Fund 2261, which is the Law Enforcement Trust Fund, and Fund 2908, which is Community Development Block Grant. Both of these funds all year have been a moving target. 2261, the Law Enforcement Trust Fund, is where we receive money from the federal government for asset forfeiture. And as the courts have been closed as a result of COVID, the revenues that were budgeted have not materialized. So this is a further adjustment to the appropriations for the fund. You may recall that this was an item that was on your agenda last month, where we made a substantial reduction in appropriations, and after additional discussion and review, we've determined that it wasn't necessary to make such a large reduction in appropriations. So this restores $43,896 in appropriations to this fund for a total appropriation of $216,896, which will allow our police department to cover the expenses that they have planned for the fund for the balance of the year. The second fund is Fund 2908, the Community Development Block Grant Fund, and this resolution would reduce appropriations for the fund by $92,899, and that is the result of several projects being moved from 2021 projects to 2022 projects. So those will be part of 2022 appropriations. It's just a function of the billing cycles and the county's move from a model where they pay the bills on our behalf to one where we actually front the expense and then are reimbursed by the county after the fact. So the staff recommendation is adoption of the resolution.
And we'll do these one at a time. So item K is resolution authorizing, I motion that we pass a resolution authorizing the adoption of amended appropriations for the year 2021.
I second it. Any discussions?
So it's my understanding that this law enforcement trust from asset forfeiture, I think I had this discussion with Chief Denny, we've maintained membership in this program throughout the COVID trials and tribulations, and that in the next several years there's some decent amounts coming through this. That's correct. Yeah. So we're getting more. So, I guess is what I'm trying to say after
Unless
talking.
there's changes at the federal level, yeah.
That federal level never changes. That's a joke.
Okay. Mr. Baker, roll call, please.
Mr. Unger?
Aye.
Mr. Rajagopal?
Aye.
Mr. Wallace?
Aye.
Then the second resolution authorizing the advancement of township monies to CDBG.
And if you're making a motion, I will
Yeah,
second
I'll
it.
make a motion, yeah.
I will second it.
Any discussions?
No.
No. Matt, any discussion?
No, thank you.
Mr. Baker, roll call, please.
Mr. Unger?
Aye.
Mr. Rajagopal?
Aye.
Mr. Wallace?
Aye. Thank you, Board.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you, Mr. McElravy. The final item of new business for the evening is a resolution repealing resolutions 6113 and 6213 and creating a registration of foreclosing mortgage property and vacant property in the township. You'll recall at your last meeting, the board considered entering into a contract with a vendor called ProChamps. There was some conversation and questions that were raised at that time about ProChamps, particularly Mr. Wallet. I recall that you asked about their open litigation that they responded with in their RFP response, and also it was important to you, as I recall, that the term of the contract be 1 year and there be a 30-day out for
Yep.
us, right?
Absolutely.
And I was able to talk with their general counsel, their inside counsel, and got a much clearer understanding of the nature of the litigation. My understanding now is that there is just one active litigant in multiple states that's upset that they have to register vacant property. They're a large property owner, and these lawsuits have taken place in Florida and now New Jersey. And in Florida, pro champs prevailed, and prevailed to the extent that the litigant had to pay the court costs and attorney fees of pro champs. So significant. It was almost like a nuisance lawsuit. Now in New Jersey, there's a different court, and at the trial level, that judge ruled in the opposite direction, and now it's up on appeal. It appears as though the appeals court will overturn the trial court on that. So that's my update on the litigation. With pro champs, the reason I mentioned the pro champs piece along with this agenda item is that they have to go sort of hand in hand. So I'm just going to very briefly take us back memory lane here and recall that the Great Recession was a response to a housing crisis and foreclosure crisis. That crisis hit Colerain Township particularly hard, as it did many first-ring suburbs. In response to the burgeoning numbers of foreclosed properties in the township and vacant properties in the township, the Board of Trustees at the time in 2013 adopted a vacant building maintenance license program and a vacant foreclosed property registry program. And those two programs were designed to mitigate the bad things that happen when properties sit vacant. Times have changed, and so the issues that we were facing in 2013 are not necessarily the same ones we're facing today. And so what we're recommending is repealing the 2013 version, the 1.0, and replacing it with the modern version of this legislation, the best practice legislation that you see in front of you. So it only makes sense to adopt this if you're going to adopt the pro champs. So they kind of have to go hand in hand, but this is a new business and pro champs is an old business, so I don't know. It's a chicken or egg kind of thing.
Okay. Thanks, Jeff. I make motion, adopt the resolution, repealing resolution 61-13 and 62-13, and creating a registration of foreclosing mortgage property and vacant property. Right?
I'll second.
Any discussions?
Sure, and we discussed this, and I'm trying to get back to the beginning of this, and this is moving kind of slow. We discussed this at length today, Jeff, and as I stated, my concern is every property, every residential owner-occupied property eventually becomes vacant because we all pass on, and sometimes it takes time to settle an estate. And you've assured me how it would work. I just don't want to be chasing the obits, because that's, the day I pass, my property's going to be vacant for a few months while whatever's going to happen with it. So I don't want to, this does not go after those properties, because every single property that's going to happen with, eventually, it happens to all of us. And so we've discussed that, and I just wanted to mention that. And then the other item on here, demanding a 18 by 24 inch sign in the window stating that this is a vacant property, and here's who you call if you have questions about the property. And it doesn't exactly say vacant, and I'm trying to get to that. But I was just concerned that putting a sign, here it is on item E, on section 8, security requirements. This property is managed by blank, is inspected on a regular basis. The property manager can be contacted, and you list that. I'm just afraid if we start putting 18 by 24 inch signs on vacant buildings, that's an invitation to come in and decopperize it and take the air conditioning condenser. If you got room on the truck, take the air conditioning condenser with you. So those are my concerns.
Sure.
So we'll just have to watch where those go, and because of the way that Matt has asked to have this structured, there's a 30-day out, and I'm willing to go along with this and see how it goes, but those are the two things I'm concerned about, so.
Thank you for sharing that. And we just one, because we've tried this before to have a third party administer this. The difference between the Muni-Reg contractor and this contractor is experience. So these pro champs have been doing this for about 10 years, and they've registered over 1 million properties. So they've done it. The proof is sort of in the pudding, and there shouldn't be too much difficulty for them to replicate their success here.
So, and this is more about pro champs than this, but since they go hand in hand, thank you for doing the research on the legal. And thank you also I'm a big believer in one-year contracts. I've worked on them, one-year contracts for 25 years now. And I think a 30-day out is good, honestly, because I feel stung by Muni-Reg. So when I went back to look at it again this weekend, a little bit, some of the more stuff that they offer. So they have this customized reporting, I guess this portal that you go to. Who's going to have access to that? Would that be trustees? Would that be department heads? Just to see how many have been reported?
You know what? The way that we report our data, because we are a very data-intensive organization, the way we report out our data is on OpenGov, and that could be a part of our reporting out in the development department each month, or in the police department each month. We could have a scoreboard of vacant registrations and foreclosed registrations.
Because I know one of the frustrations with Muni-Reg is I'd come to you and say, all right, what's happening with them? Yeah.
Nothing ever happened. Then
Yeah.
So there's goose egg to report.
If I can log in and see, hey, wait a second, I think that, and then ultimately, who's the kind of the point person to take, I guess, Councilman Greg Landsman, I always love this line, whose neck do I strangle? Who's the ultimate, who's going to police these guys to make sure that they're doing what we want them to do?
I mean, always mine, right?
Right, okay.
I'll be the one neck to squeeze, but the person that's going to be interacting on a daily basis would. So here's how it would flow. Somebody reports to us that a vacant property, and there's a vacant nuisance property. We have our code enforcement officer go out and confirm vacancy, and they can do that in a number of ways. Once they confirm vacancy, it'll fail an inspection, and then at that point, it moves to Debbie. And Debbie would then be the conduit to our pro champs vendor. She would then say, hey, this property failed its inspection. Then the baton is passed, and they do all the work of contacting figuring out who the property owner is, contacting that property owner, and getting the property registered. The property owner would then pay our vendor, and our vendor would cut us a check. It's monthly.
Okay, so what I'd like to see in this is that and it's not a pro champ thing. It's a Muni-Reg thing, probably more. This is too important to let it fall through the cracks. I want to see just a short leash on that, and let us know if it's not working out. And that's why I have the 30-day out. This can't fail. We can't let it fail. And I think if we stay on top of them.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's on the vacant side. The process I just described is on the vacant side. On the foreclosed side, they're going to be scrubbing, the court index and identifying foreclosures, and they're going to be reaching out to banks, and they've already have relationships with the major banks anyway. Another important change is that there's now a biannual registration process because of how debts are bought and sold so quickly these days that keeping on top of that registration is important. So, and at the end of the day, what we're trying to do is fight blight and have a point of contact at each of these vacant properties that we can call when the grass gets tall or when the window gets busted or whatever.
And there's a shared economic interest with the banks because they don't want their asset to be dissipated by air conditioning and copper being taken.
Yep.
All right, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any further discussions? Oh. Good. Mr. Baker, roll call, please.
Mr. Unger?
Aye.
Mr. Rajagopal?
Aye.
Mr. Wallace?
All right.
Thank you, Board. Next item on the agenda is old business. And this is, I don't have a favorite child, but I do have a favorite item on this agenda, and that is the motion to adopt the 2022 strategic plan and budget. This is an enormous amount of work that goes into this each year. It plots our path forward for 2022, and it aligns, it starts with your goals, builds initiatives to achieve those goals, and aligns the resources that we have in terms of money and people behind those goals. And so this year, I'm excited. One of the innovations that we had this year was to move it from a PDF document to really a digital interactive budget book that we utilize our OpenGov software capabilities to do. So hopefully it's more engaging. Hopefully it allows residents and businesses or anybody that's interested to drill down to the information that they want quicker. And it certainly will be our it'll be our path forward for 2022. Recommend adoption.
Yeah, motion to adopt the 2022 strategic plan and budget.
A second.
Discussions?
Yes, I believe there was an item in there for solar for some of our buildings, and I'm not in favor of that item.
Okay.
So when that comes up,
Yes.
I-
There will
I
likely
reali-
be, I was counting today, 5 votes to get to like implementation on that project, because we'll have to
Right.
put out an RFP, we'll have to accept bids.
right, and I did a little bit of homework and contacted several local businesses, and you can drive by and look at their roof, and I don't see some of the major commercial businesses in this township. That's not part of their plan. You know, a place like this that runs 24/7 with our firehouses and that, we have enough of a base load, and we're running at night, and the solar doesn't work so well at night, and I just don't know, and we can discuss it, but I don't know that we're gonna get the payback on it, so, just because of the nature of what we're doing here. But other than that, I know you put a lot of work into it, so. that's good.
Jeff, go ahead, finish.
I'm never gonna be
It's like
finished
Mike
with him.
Tyson
Go
said,
finish.
everybody's got a plan until you get punched in the face, right?
Good. You know, this is a fantastic happening to the Colerain Township, because before I become a trustee, and you know there is no plan, no strategic planning. It's almost like a runaway train. Then after this board came and we collected all the data from the people, what the people voice, what they need for the township. Then we developed the strategic planning. You guys did it such a way, get all the department heads, you have like a leadership retreat, and you got brainstorm, and you made this, also got employees got involved, the staff, and you go with the strategic planning. I always used to say, any program should be evidence-based program, and this is what the strategic plan and goal calls, that evidence-based program. And he's a statistic, he'll tell you. And the goals, we have accomplished a lot of things because of this strategic planning. You got 2021 following the 2022. I was at the leadership retreat thing up in a huge fancy place up in an American place. So you guys spend about a whole weekend and analyzing the needs of our township, the people, and you created this wonderful strategic planning. I really appreciate it. This is hard work. Jeff Weckbach, all this, police chief, and Jeff Mackler, all the public works. At the time, Jackie, she did a fantastic work, and we really miss her. And so it's a great target. I'd like to continue this journey and make the best place to live.
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry, I think.
Go ahead.
I agree with the usefulness of this strategic plan. The only thing that always in the back of my mind talking to me about this, the Great Gazoo, if you ever watched the Flintstones as a kid. I was probably way too old for anybody in this room, but I worry that it's a one-year plan.
Right.
There are things that its time horizon is much more extended, and going from year to year to year. I think there's a vision that's put out in the plan but sometimes I'm concerned about looking at things in one, but I guess you have to, because you've got elections and you've got different boards to deal with, but, ultimately, I like long-term, 30-year plans.
Yeah, no, it's an interesting point. We've talked about that a lot. So our comprehensive plan really lays out that sort of 15-year, 20-year time horizon. And really, we only have 2 years guaranteed with 3 people, right? And so maybe that becomes the planning horizon. The hard part is we're off that right now. So, we could modify our strategic plan for, this coming board, 22, 23. We don't know what 24 brings, but that's a good point.
No, I know. I think that I think that they're stepped towards bigger goals, but I think it's hard to kind of see that. Right now, I see the vision when you and Jeff Weckbach share it with me, and I'm like, oh, that's why it's in there, because you want to do this in 22 and this in 23. But I mean, it's always that kind of tug of war that I have. I mean, putting it down on paper and strategic planning, and you've kind of taught me this, that I can't come to your office and say, hey, I want to do this.
You can.
We have it done by Monday.
You could do whatever you like, but what happens is that you get this sort of like, you lose your focus and then you don't get to accomplish anything to its completion, right? So if we say, these are the big picture things that we're going to try to achieve, and these are the initiatives that we're going to hit this year, then we're all focused on those, we're evaluated on those, and hopefully we make, incremental step.
That's the best word, focus. I agree 1,000%.
Good. Any further discussions?
Just that the item that I was talking about is under capital budget project summaries, that solar items right in the middle of that page. And in contrast to what, a lot of this stuff is long-term, beyond one stuff. There's 3 different fire station projects here, and that's not stuff we're going to get done next year, but I mean, it's teeing it up for the future. So that's all, Raj.
Thank you, Dan. Mr. Baker, roll call, please.
Mr. Unger?
Aye.
Mr. Rajagopal?
Aye.
Mr. Wallace?
Aye.
Thank you. Next item is an old business, and it's a motion accepting the proposal of pro-champs for vacant and foreclosed registry administrative services and authorizing the township administrator to execute the agreement. We talked a little bit about this. We talked about it last month and now this month, so the recommendation is to adopt.
I motion that we accept the proposal of pro-champs for vacant and foreclosed property, foreclosed registry, administrative services, and authorizing the township administrator to execute agreement.
I second it. Any discussions?
No more comments on it.
Mr. Baker, roll call, please.
Mr. Unger?
Aye.
Mr. Rajagopal?
Aye.
Mr. Waller?
Aye.
Thank you, board.
Thank you.
Sure.
The next is the consent items. We have long consent items. Do we vote on each one? We just read it, then we'll vote.
I can handle it however you'd like. I can read
Go
through
read
it
that's all
by
this
title. Or
already long meeting.
I know.
Well, I would say that before you start that a couple of them are donations from Trustee Wallace. I think if you left item L and M out as 2 separate items, then the rest of them you could do in one, if that favors the board.
Yes.
Sure.
I recommend that the board approve all consent items.
Well, I mean, you probably should
Oh, you want me to read through
read
it?
them. Yeah,
Sure.
but I mean,
Okay.
just don't read L and M, just do those separately.
You got it. All right. First item on the consent agenda is a new hire in the Public Services Department. It's for a maintenance worker. A conditional offer of employment was offered to Mr. Dominic Bosch. The wage for this job is $21 per hour for 40 hours per week. Contingent upon your approval, he'd be eligible to begin work December 15th, 2021. That's tomorrow. There's also a new hire, a reserve police officer in the police department. This is former Hamilton County Sheriff Jim Neal. The wage for this job as a reserve police officer is $0 per hour for 0 hours a week for work. The position of reserve officer is intended to serve the township in an as-needed basis. Reserve officers are able to assist at events and may also cover open patrol positions as needed. The township, in turn, holds the officer's Ohio Peace Officer certification.
So can I ask a question about that?
Yeah.
So then, if he does, how is he paid if he does?
He's not.
He
Okay.
just needs to stay with the department. with a department.
To keep his, oh, got it.
Give a certification, right?
But he's also, it's great to be able to draw on his experience.
Oh, yeah.
So anyway, okay, next item is a status change, a records clerk changing status to police cadet. Records clerk Kristen Berniker is currently at $17.43 per hour. Should be reassigned to the role of police cadet at $15 per hour as she works her way through the police academy. And as we'll see in the next item, we recommend a new hire of a police officer in the police department. This new hire would be Kristen Berniker. The idea is that after she completes her work at the police academy, that we would hire her at a wage of $25.48 per hour for 40 hours per week. This would be contingent upon successful completion of the police academy, psychological and medical evaluation, successful completion of the State of Ohio certification exam. With your approval this evening, she'd be eligible to begin work in June of next year. Next is a new hire, police officer in the police department. A conditional offer was made to Heather Mason. The wage for this job is $25.48 per hour for 40 hours work per week, contingent upon your approval. She'd be eligible to begin on December 15th, 2021. Next item is a new hire in the police department. It's a police officer. Conditional offer was made to Denny Lopez Roblero. The wage for this job continues to be $25.48 per hour, 40 hours per week. Contingent upon your approval, be eligible to begin work tomorrow. Next item is a new hire in the police department. It's a police officer. It's Brendan Mers. Still $25.48 per hour for 40 hours per week. Contingent upon your approval this evening, be eligible to begin work tomorrow. Next item is a promotion, a civilian supervisor in the police department. Kelly Hopewell would be promoted to civilian supervisor. The wage for this job is $23 per hour for 40 hours per week. She would also retain her role as accreditation manager. Next item is a promotion in the police department to impound lot clerk. Recommend the promotion of Paula Atkins to impound lot clerk. Wage for this job is $20 per hour for 40 hours per week. She'd retain her role as records clerk as well. Next item is a promotion in the police department. It's property room manager. Kristen Stenger would be promoted to the role of property room manager. The wage for this job is $22 per hour for 40 hours per week. She would maintain her role as records clerk as well. Next item is a contract. I signed a contract with Circle. This is our communications platform. It is our electronic newsletter. And the amount of that contract, Ms. Moore, is $1,305. Excuse me. With the total contract, that's per year. Okay. Next item is a donation acceptance.
Let's stop after K, and
Okay.
I will motion that we approve consent items A through K, as read by Mr. Mills just finished reading.
I'll second that.
Any, excuse me, in discussions?
No.
Okay. I'm going to, item number 2, Reserve Police Officer Jim Neal. I'll abstain because he's a friend of mine. Okay, how do I do that, Scott? Oh, you make a separate, huh? You can abstain if you want. On that particular one?
Yeah, on that one, or you can,
Abstain for the
or
rest
all
of
of
it?
it.
All of-
It's up to you. I think
Yeah, because of
however
that?
way you want to do it.
Okay, all right,
They're consent items anyway, so
yeah,
they've already occurred.
okay, all right, thank you. Any further discussions?
No.
Mr. Baker, roll call, please.
Mr. Unger?
Matt, you did second this, right?
Yeah.
Mr. Unger, aye.
Mr. Rajagopal?
Abstain.
Mr. Waller?
Aye.
Very good. Okay. Next items are donation acceptance. The Colerain Township Police Department is grateful for a $300 donation from Trustee Wallet in appreciation of their service to our community. Colerain Township Department of Fire and EMS is grateful for a $300 donation from Trustee Wallace in appreciation of their service. Colerain Township Administration is grateful for a $100 donation from...
Stop after M. I motion that we approve items L and M, the donation acceptance from Trustee Wallert.
I second.
Okay.
Any discussion?
No, thank you, Matt.
Thank you, Matt. Mr. Baker, roll call, please.
Mr. Unger?
Aye.
Mr. Rajagopal?
Aye.
Mr. Wallace?
Abstain.
Okay, now go ahead.
Okay, the Colerain Township Administration is grateful for a $100 donation from Meyer to support our annual Employee Appreciation Luncheon. Colerain Township Police Department is grateful for a $1,000 donation from Home Depot in the form of American Express gift cards in the amount of $1,000. Colerain Township Department of Fire and EMS is grateful for a $15,000 donation from the Joseph family in appreciation for, quote, everything you and your team do every day, end quote. Colerain Township Police Department is grateful for a $6,000 donation from the Joseph family in appreciation for everything you and your team do every day. Recommendation is to adopt all consent agenda items.
I motion that we adopt items N, O, P, and Q.
I second it. Any discussions?
Yes, as this is the last vote of the year, and this is just a general housekeeping thing, Mr. Baker. For the last 4 years, I've always been called first to vote, which is fine with me because I generally know what I'm at. I'm just, when we get to our organizational meeting, not knowing where people are going to be sitting at that meeting, if it's your pleasure, maybe you would call somebody different for the first vote each time. I'm fine with being first, second, or last, but I've always been first. So I don't know if that,
I just did it in the order you were sitting, so if you'd rather have it be a particular order, you can, that's fine.
and that'll be determined at the organizational meeting, whoever ends up president and vice president. I don't see Mrs. Ulrich here, but just for the starting next year, we can discuss it, like I said, at the organizational meeting, maybe that vote would rotate. I'm fine with do what we're doing. It doesn't really matter, but I don't know how it's going to work out for Kathy, so no other.
However you want to have it read,
This,
that'd be fine.
this can be the last, I mean, call me first for this vote too, but I'm just saying, that's just something we've always done, and it kind of puts the Matt in the position where he's always the tiebreaker if it's a split vote between two of us, and that way it's just rotating, just luck of the draw, whatever, it's the first person called.
Okay, Jeff, call me with my...
I'd be happy to mix it up. I don't get it, yeah.
Okay, go ahead, let's start today. Start with my name.
Are we ready for a vote?
I don't have anything else to say. This is, I'm done talking for the year.
I'm a president of the board. Just joking. Call
We're
with
approving
my
this is a vote to approve the final 4 consent items.
Mr. Waller?
I knew it was coming and I couldn't. Aye.
Mr. Rajagopal?
Aye.
Mr. Unger?
Aye.
Thank you,
Board, we've
Jeff.
accomplished a lot this evening.
Thank you, thank you. The next in the report is a fiscal office report.
Thank you, Board. I'll be very brief. We fulfilled our 300th public records request this week, and we have, I believe, 4 that are still active, so we're working to get those finished by the end of the year. And I just wanted to say that it has been an absolute honor to work with you, Mr. Rajagopal, for the past 2 years. When I first started here, you kind of took me under your wing when we were at the Ohio Township Association seminar, introduced me to a lot of people that have been very helpful for me the first couple years here. So I appreciate everything you've done for me, everything you've done for the township. The best thing about it is that you and Rhina have become friends, good friends with the Baker family.
Thank you.
And that, isn't dependent upon any kind of vote. So you will always be our friend, and we know we think of you guys very closely. And you're really good at what you do. You're a great public servant, and I don't think, and I hope that this isn't the last we see of you, because you have a lot to give and have a lot to offer the community. So I just want to thank you for the great job that you've done.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Thank you for your kind words. Thank you. The next in the list, executive sessions, we don't need it. Also, if not, call for the adjournment. We have motion to.
I motion that we adjourn at 9:53 PM.
You'll need to unlock your iPhone first.
That's Raj's phone, that's not mine.
I just locked, I don't know, everything goes on now. Okay, your flashlight goes.
What?
Is there a second to adjourn?
Oh, sure.
Mr. Baker, roll call, please, to adjourn.
Mr. Rajagopal,
Aye?
Mr. Unger,
Aye.
Mr. Waller.
Aye.
Okay.
Start it up. Way to go, Jeff. Thank you all
Meeting
for
is
watching.
adjourned.
and
Thank you
Merry
for coming to
Christmas
the meeting.
everyone.
Thank you for watching it.